Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast Storm, where socially awkward outcasts and weirdos convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Nerdy Occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, folks. I think we're both very tired, so apologies if this one is rather low energy. But as my experience tells me, it'll only take one metric tonnage of stupid before I will be ranting and raving as per usual. So we will get going one way or the other.
All right, yeah, just give me a sec to the article's loading. So I want, because we've had this stuff in cycle for a few weeks now. So this stuff is kind of old, and we got new stuff prepared. Don's been busy at work with that, and I'm looking for a positive thing because
I'm better at detecting the stupid things, and Brainstormer is better at finding the diamonds in the rough.
or just underrated or unknown things that should be known. Okay. Yep. Okay. Go. Okay. So this is from Polygon.com. Written by Maddie Myers, published May 6, 2025. GTA trailer makes Rockstar's changed politics very clear.
I mean, I don't think that politics should be the fucking point. I suspect I will become very, very familiar with that phrase as we go through this article. But you do you, I suppose. Polygon Journo.
Maddie Myers.
This the problem there is I don't know what to call them because I don't know if that's a guy's name or a girl's name.
I mean, it's Maddie. Well, okay. To be fair, my computer is not giving the photo. Hold on. I'll look it up on my phone real quick. I would assume woman. To be fair, Maddie. Like. Just hold on.
Okay. All right. Well, then, in that case, I will go with Miss Myers, unless and until different information comes to light. But Miss Myers, have you considered that making everything under the sun and several things which are not under the sun about politics is kind of the problem? Anyway, moving on.
Okay. Okay, Lucia is a true hero of a very different kind, is the subheader. That was the female dual protagonist with Jason in the trailer. And to be fair, this article, just so people were aware, this article was kind of supposed to be a companion piece to the trailer. But just given the other things we had last week.
God damn it. Excuse me, I have to discipline the dog again. For the love of God, dog.
Okay.
Okay. I am back. The dog has been dealt with. Moving on.
But yeah, this was supposed to be a companion piece to the trailer. Obviously, we didn't cover it just because we had a lot of trailers to cover last week. And I honestly thought it would be better if we had a week to stew with the trailer we covered, so we could just kind of look at this kind of with an open eyes, or I don't know, fresh eyes.
From an informed perspective.
Yes, thank you, Don. I'm tired, so please forgive me on that.
Ditto. Moving on.
Yeah. Okay. Back in 2022, Bloomberg reported that Rockstar Games cleaned up its frat boy culture in Grand Theft Auto 2. Changes took shape in different ways, from less crunch to a narrowing of the gender pay gap for workers at the studio, and to the introduction of the game's first playable female character, Latina named Lucia. And now in the second trailer of Grand Theft Auto 6, we're seeing the game's marketing has changed a bit from previous entries too.
You would know this franchise a little bit better than I do. Can you assess the accuracy of that statement? I suspect this person is revising history like a motherfucker and talking completely out of her ass, but I could be wrong.
I mean, it had the staples of a GTA game from what I remember seeing of other trailers and stuff. Is like the action, the kind of story, the general gist of the characters. Is also very tropey, or it looked like it took a lot of inspiration from a lot of different movies and stuff, which a lot of Rockstar games, or the genres, I guess, not movies per se, but genres overall, right? Mm-hmm. Which GTA is effectively crime thriller games, Rockstar did Red Dead Redemption, but I don't really see the difference, to be fully honest. I mean, they're going with a Bonnie and Clyde kind of story. Most of the time, they have kind of. Well, let me be fair. Up until GTA 5, to my knowledge, and anyone who's a bigger knowledgeable of GTA, they only had single protagonists until GTA 5, which had 3 protagonists. So
I also suspect there's something a little bit weird about calling Lucia a hero when you consider that, to the best of my knowledge, and again, feel free to correct me, Brainstormer, no one in GTA is meant to really be a hero in the moral sense. They're protagonists, but they're not supposed to particularly be heroic characters.
Again, they're often, they're all criminals usually, or
at most you might get a little bit of Robin Hoodism here and there, but that's about the sum and substance of it. As far as I was aware.
No, they're all rather not selfish, but they don't do any Robin Hood kind of stuff or anything like that.
Okay, so even that would be going too far. Point being, I suspect the subtitle calls Lucia a hero because the author of this article is going to want to reframe her actions as somehow more moral than all the other characters because ideological reasons. I could be wrong, but that seems like really odd phrasing in a setting where there really aren't that many heroes to begin with. Moving on, though.
To illustrate the difference, let's go back in time to the marketing smash hit GTA 5, which released in 2013. Huh. This game's first trailer came out in 2011 and its second in 2002. There were 3 protagonists, and both the trailers featured a lot of voiceover from Michael DeSanta, Ned Luke, a career criminal who's now seeing a therapist as part of a Tony Soprano-esque midlife crisis. The trailer is mostly focused on action. There are exciting car chases and a big crime spree involving collaboration between the three main characters, though the other two don't get as much screen time as Michael in the first two trailers. Okay, it's kind of not to say like. To be fair, Michael acts like a bridge between the two other main characters.
So he's kind of the linchpin character then.
Yeah, and to be fair, I believe again, anyone who's a bigger because I didn't really I played GTA 4 a bit when I was younger, but I never got to play GTA 5. I've just watched stuff about it, right? It seems like his actions are kind of paramount to what happens in the story of GTA 5, or at least start the events that kind of start that snowball affect everything going on for the rest of the story from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So it would kind of make sense that he is somewhat given focus. Okay, Don?
Dog is being an asshole again, and I can't close the door because the cat keeps running in and out. Dog, no. No, dog. Quit it. You're gonna have to stay in a bit, Charles. I can't lift the door down. Sorry. Animals that aren't my responsibility are an asshole. God damn it. Moving on.
Yeah. That's all I gotta say specifically to that. Moving on.
Yep, moving on.
The series' sense of humor, which arguably does skew towards making fun of right-wing targets, despite the series' notorious depiction of sex workers and women in general, isn't really on display.
Well, that would make GTA 6 less accurate to reality then.
GTA 5. No, they're still on GTA 5.
Oh, are they? Well, that being that as it may, that means that that game is slightly less realistic about crime than most of the other games then, because
again, it's complicated. Again, it's been a while since I've looked into the story of GTA 5, but it's set in Los Santos, which is kind of supposed to be San Andreas. Actually, that's the state kind of. It's supposed to be the Los Angeles, right? Los Santos.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that there is. They have crime in there. It's just sex work and prostitution is not something that really comes up. It's basically just a whole heist game, effectively. So it's not focusing on that specifically, you know.
Right, but even if we assume that the author here is telling the truth, which, again, there are reasons to doubt that you've just gone into, if the game has less focus on sex workers, that would actually be a point against it rather than for it, if you want crime to be portrayed realistically. Which I know realism isn't exactly the point of GTA, but being essentially a crime simulator is kind of the point of the franchise. Kind
Don't
of.
nitpicky. I'm going to say that as the first thing. Two, GTA is not your thing, so I think again you're lacking the context needed for it.
I just it sounds like this author is trying to make GTA 5 and by extension GTA 6 sound more feminist and intersectional than it is. And I can't quite itemize the particulars of the bullshit, but I still sense the incoming bullshit.
Right. I'm just saying. I think you're being. Well, for one thing, I don't know. It's like I said, what they focus on mostly in GTA 5 are like heist things rather than. It's not. I wouldn't even say it's like crime simulator. It's complicated. Again, like I'm not the biggest GTA like diehard fan, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, mind you.
Mhm.
So
Anyway, moving forward.
But it's clear from GTA 5's early marketing that the three protagonists were very much anti-heroes. You might be playing as them, but you aren't necessarily going to agree with what they're doing. That's fine. Here to do crimes and embrace your id. After all, it's playing as somebody unlikable makes sense, right?
I think it's a little bit.
I think there's a difference between unlikable and unsympathetic. Or no,
Also,
ununderstandable. Like you can understand a character, you don't have to like them, but you can understand them.
also, I question by what criteria you claim them as anti-heroes. Again, this isn't my franchise, but Brainstormer explicitly just agreed with me that while there are protagonists in the GTA games, there really
they're
aren't
not
heroes or
okay.
anti-heroes.
So the protagonist of GTA 5. Hello, Giant Turtle. Doing well. How are you? So there's Michael DeSanta, who is a guy in witness protection who was trying to protect his family. Well, to be fair, he kind of hates his family. Again, like Tony Soprano, he's kind of an asshole. They're all assholes, but actually, one actually might be pretty cool. There's Franklin, who's from like the inner city of Los Santos. So like gangs, he kind of grew up in the like gangs and stuff and culture of that. But he's a guy who's just trying to get out of all that and just trying to make a better life for himself. Uh, there is Trevor, who I believe was kind of supposed to be the not a was a parody of like GTA players who were just literally the guy's basically a psychopath and crazy and destructive and shit. You know, like how generalized the like general like audiences that would play GTA.
Yeah, I've heard of Trevor. He has kind of a reputation.
Yeah. Played wonderfully by an actor who has been in a few things and might be typecasted for this specific character. Obviously,
For
Stephen
being
Hawking.
the evil douchebag.
Not necessarily evil, but deranged.
Mm.
Um,
The inner city white trash douchebag, then?
Sticks, white trash douchebag.
Mm.
So your neck of the woods.
Fair play.
Yeah. They're not like purely evil dudes, and to be fair, two of them are like middle aged and are doing all this crazy shit because I think, well, one of them is probably having a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a very like the game is very like, well, it's comedic, but I think it handles a very like morally gray kind of, oh well, for at least two of the characters, very morally gray. kind of morality. With Trevor, it's kind of like a
Wish
chaotic,
fulfillment thing.
chaotic, neutral, I guess.
As in, some men just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah, it's complicated. Um, so yeah, they're kind of anti-heroes, but not. It's
I feel like this writer is stretching definitions significantly here, and
yeah, like I
that's my
said,
issue. Like,
it's. I am not disagreeing with you. I'm just the description is somewhat apt, but when you know the context of the characters, it's hard to describe. I guess.
because what little I know about GTA, I know because of the fact that Trevor is a meme, and everyone plays Trevor as kind of an utter loose cannon because of the aforesaid like parody of people's just automatic playing behavior when it came to GTA.
It depends on the player. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
GTA 6's early marketing has a different vibe. These first two trailers are much more focused on character drama rather than pure action. Also, while Jason and Lucia are clearly anti-heroes as well, clearly resorting to a life of crime, these trailers also make them seem, well, likable.
I didn't get much of that from the trailer, but then again, this is very far outside of what I would consider my wheelhouse. So maybe I'm the asshole in this particular canard.
Well, to be fair, they don't seem as unhinged, deranged, or destructive as the previous protagonists. Well, two of the protagonists of GTA
Right,
5.
but it's a large gulf between they don't destroy everything they touch and therefore likable. Like that's
I mean, to be fair, they just seem like ordinary people that are doing criminal shit to make their lives better, which, I mean, given how the world is, I could kind of understand.
yeah, any port in a storm, as the old saying goes.
And it's set in Vice City, which is supposed to be like Miami, Florida. So Florida, man, you know all that. Oh, Florida's just a fucking like nut house, honestly. So
Yeah, can we give it back to Spain? Can we make it Spain's problem again? I'd prefer if we gave it back to Spain and made it Spain's problem. Because before, when my friend Eglantine still lived down there, I had no particular explicable reason to. Um, I had to maintain the existence of Florida in the U.S. because he was down there. But now he's not down there anymore. Now he's also in Indiana. So we can safely sell Florida back to Spain and make it somebody else's problem for once.
right, but given all the craziness that happens, assuming like because they have made it look a lot more like Florida-ish and stuff.
Mm.
Um, I'm just assuming that it's tough down there, like living there, like even being like born there and living in that place.
I've only
Um,
been to Florida one time when I was like 15. We went to Disney for like a spring break once, and I hated it because rather than staying at one of the resorts, we decided to stay at my stepdad's mom's timeshare, and it was in the middle of the like boonies of the Florida swamp, and I just hated it.
can imagine. Um, but it's weird that they're focused. I mean, to be fair, in the first trailer, she got the attention, and then it was kind of more Jason in the second one, which is actually a good strategy. I would say.
Yeah, if we have multiple protagonists that we want to at least make the audience connect to, then we probably should focus some time on both of them. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Moving
Yes.
on. Ugh. God damn it. All right. The first GTA 6 trailer puts Lucia front and center first thing, giving her a quick character building conversation with somebody who appears to be a prison social worker. It's pretty easy to contrast this with the opening of the second GTA 5 trailer, which features two unnamed women screaming at each other in the background right before Michael's voiceover begins. Okay.
I'm not sure you're supposed to contrast that for any particular reason unless you have an ideological, like, absurdly feministic bias.
Well, to be fair, two women arguing could kind of be symbolic of the thing between Michael and Trevor because they have just such a disdain for one another. They're constantly arguing like bitter old married couple. Because the story there is that they used to be best friends that did robberies together, like they were part of a crew. And Trevor effectively, Michael betrayed his old crew, got put into witness protection, basically faked his death and all that. And years later, Trevor finds out his best friend's alive and was a fucking
and
rat.
resents him for turning on them and ratting on them and going into witness protection, presumably.
Yeah, it's all that shit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of bury the hatchet by the end of the story. Kind of. It's in the way that in a way that stereotypical guys do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't outright say it, but you know.
And then they get our room off screen because that's a better ending in my head.
Trevor might be bisexual. I'm not sure on that one. Michael has a family, so.
Oh well. Unfortunately, I have a rule against sticking it in crazy. So sorry, Trev.
Yeah, is okay. This focus makes sense given that Lucia is one of the two lead characters, but in addition to being our first playable female protagonist in GTA, she's also depicted in this trailer as sympathetic. Partway through, Lucia tells the social worker that the bad luck must have been what got her into prison, and she doesn't seem like she's cracking a joke there.
I thought she was cracking a joke there. I thought she was being like dry and sardonic and shit.
I mean, I'd say it's like a mix of both. I would say like it's a mix of both, to be honest.
I mean, you can kind of have it both ways there, but I don't know why you would go full the other direction and say no, she was being dead serious the entire time, unless you happen to be ideologically obsessed with criminals didn't do nothing wrong and therefore must have a Doofenshmirtz style sympathetic backstory all the fucking time.
Yeah.
The wicked problem.
It's sorry. Fuck. Okay. The second GTA 6 trailer has even more character building for Jason and Lucia. It seems like the less likable of the pair, given that he has a moment of punching a black cashier before opening the register.
I don't think the race of the cashier mattered. I think it's just a matter of in certain areas, some people will be black and some won't be. Like,
It's fucking
again, unless this author assumes by default the social justice lens.
yeah. No, as soon as I read that, my fucking god.
And by the way, even if he did punch a black cashier, that doesn't make him any less likable than any of the other criminal shit that the characters do throughout the game. Like, would it have been better if the cashier was white? Oh, writer of Polygon bullshit that apparently believes social justice is just a default thing.
It's
because focusing on that detail kind of implies that the writer would be more sympathetic to the character if that cashier hadn't been black, because something my victimhood,
oh fuck
which
no.
is
Anyway,
just stupid. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I'm gonna be fully honest. I never noticed that the cashier was black. Honestly, I thought it was just a white guy with dreadlocks.
I didn't care either way because, again,
Well, it wasn't focused on
criminality
either
is sort of
way,
a
like,
central fixture of
and you
GTA.
oh. So what I was going to say, it was not a central focus of what was happening. It was a focus of him doing rent collecting for the landlord dude that he was working for, right?
Yeah, basically doing the
Like
doing the
loan shark
classic.
shit, right?
Yeah,
No, debt collector would actually be the more.
yeah,
Yeah.
the classic nice business you have here routine.
Yeah.
It would be a shame if something happens to it, etc.
It's fucking just dumb.
Protection money is the word we were both thinking of. It could.
I don't know about protection money, but some okay. Um, given that he was okay, that this appears to be part of the duties he performs for a landlord friend who lets Jason live free in exchange for this type of rent collection. But through a series of small, intimate moments, from Jason picking Lucia up from her prison stint and to the pair of them palling around an apartment together, cuddling after Lucia gets home from community service hours, still wearing her orange vest, you can't help but kind of root for these two.
I mean, only in the sense that you could say that about literally all of the GTA protagonists. I don't see how these two are like massively like this person seems to
Joker?
think there is a massive like sea change or a complete gulf between these two characters and the other main
I mean,
characters of
okay,
GTA, and I don't
okay.
see.
Don't shut the. Just can I get my point across? To kind of, sort of play the
Sorry.
devil's advocate here. Kind of playing, not really agreeing with the way she's going about it. Obviously, I do think they are very different, considering one, their two romantic interests, because often GTA protagonists never have that kind of connection with each other. Two, they do seem fairly more less. What's the word? They don't feel like character
Caricatures.
Thank you.
For the record, DT, I wasn't saying that selling Florida back to Spain would fix anything. I was mostly advocating because essentially American supremacy, giving it back to Spain and then going, now it's your problem, and then drive away like it's a comedic beat from a sitcom. Like, it's your problem now. We're not dealing with this shit anymore. It was the joke I was trying to make there.
All right, but yeah, they feel more, I guess, like real people rather than personalities inhabiting a world.
Mm.
Like, okay, full honesty, this just feels like a full-on story-driven game rather than kind of a parody. To be fair, I'm not. Again, there could be more parody, like, of the world, like in Vice City, like Miami, all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the actual game, like, but from what I've seen in the trailer, it feels more just legitimately like an actual genuine story being told.
Okay, I have two comments on that. One, I think you might be filling in gaps for them, because you like seeing character moments and shit. And two, even if that is the case, the elements that you've just highlighted as what makes them more compelling characters is not what the author of this article is hyperfixating on. She is hyperfixating on criminals as victims and various social justice categories and shit.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying as I stated before I started my points, I don't agree with where she's going with this, obviously. The general premise of what she was saying, though, like the
I'm just pointing
and I
out.
just finished my thought.
Sorry.
It's fine. I just want to get my thought out first before you have a counter argument. So you have the full thing, okay? Again, to be clear, I was not agreeing with the end goal, the end result of her thought process, right? And I was just somewhat playing devil's advocate on the can't help the where was it? Hold on, I'm looking.
Can't help but root for these two with the line.
That, but I was looking at something earlier, the series of small intimate moments, right? That, again, like those two pieces there, right? That I'm kind of playing devil's advocate too on the basis, just the simple thing there of like, again, they're different. Like every GTA protagonist is different in terms of character and story and all that. That's kind of the point. But oftentimes they're, again, like I said, they're like parody of either character tropes or genres, as the stories in each GTA is. So, how to say this? Just give me a second. They just don't feel as exaggerated as, again, from the trailer. I am going mainly off the second one because I haven't seen the first one since like the last year when it came out. So bear that in mind. But from the second trailer, from what I remember seeing of it, they didn't really seem as exaggerated. Like they weren't these grand personalities. Granted, that seemed to be filled with like the other characters, like the side characters, more so than the main protagonists, which I kind of find interesting. I'm not gonna lie, but that's what I meant more so than like actually agreeing with her, the reasoning the author of this article was right.
I was just highlighting that there is a major difference between the reasons you want to give this credit and the reasons she appears to want to.
And that's completely fair, and you are right. All right, moving on, or anything else?
Yeah, moving on.
Okay. All right. Another striking part of the latest GTA 6 trailer is its depiction of police violence. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, considering that every major protagonist in the entire history of the GTA franchise is a criminal of various descriptions.
To be fair, they have at least the cinematic or like story. Yeah, most of the GTA games do have elements of like corrupt judicial systems or legal, like law keeping
Right, but also, can we talk about how police being violent to criminals while they're in the process of being criminals, not necessarily unethical by itself. It may be born out of corruption or out of the person being a psychopath or being a dick, because there are dickhead cops, and there probably always will be, or at least until we can get better psychological profiling and shit. But just on the base premise, do you not see how police have a valid consideration for being violent to criminals when they're in the process of being criminals? Or at least more of one than they would just have against random people. I don't think it's a statement about police brutality to show that there are some corrupt policemen who go about the process of doing their freaking jobs occasionally. Moving on.
Yeah, but the never mind. I feel like I'm not going to win with you on that.
It sounds very much like this. The author of this article basically wants the game to be doing a George Floyd reference, and I didn't see anything like that in the trailer when we watched it. So maybe
Okay.
I'm just being a dumbass, but I don't think
To be
I
fair,
don't think I don't think the GTA franchise is going full ACAB all of a sudden.
no, but again, like they've always had characters or organizations that are corrupt in that sense.
Right, which you always have in like mob and gang related media. You always have the dirty asshole cop who is a dickhead. But
Right. I mean, in
to
GTA
take to
5,
take from that some kind of
and I
commentary on police brutality
and
is a
I
little bit of a farce.
GTA 5 they had like the equivalents of like the FBI and CIA.
In other words, the feds are cancer. Something we can all agree on because
Oh
the
no,
feds are
yeah,
cancer.
yeah.
Fuck the
Um,
feds entirely.
um, okay.
But even that is not a like George Floyd or BLM style ACAB commentary. It's just
Dalton,
in every type of
Dalton,
story where gang members or mobsters or
it's
career
criminal.
criminals are the protagonist, you're going
Oh,
to have the
can I? Yep.
guy.
Sorry, you are repeating. So,
Yeah, moving on.
all right. Another starting part of the latest GTA trailers, police violence. By contrast, here's how GTA 5's first trailer depicted the police. There's a quick shot of a black officer throwing a white guy out of a building. Then a separate scene of a black protagonist, Franklin, running away from a trio of cops. The cops don't have much presence in the second GTA 5 trailer outside of some background siren noises used during a car chase. They're villains,
But
yes, but the villainy isn't the focus of those trailers, and certainly not.
I
And here's some pre- preci- precis- prescient no
prescient.
prescient commentary on systemic racism type of way. Jesus fucking Christ.
Okay, one, I don't think you were supposed to focus on the race of the cops in GTA 5. Again, I'm coming at this from the outside looking in, so maybe I'm the asshole, but I don't think you were supposed to focus on the race of the cops in GTA 5.
You're not.
And two, even the asshole cops aren't necessarily villainous. They're just antagonistic, and I don't think. Again, the author of this article seems to want the GTA franchise to just go full all cops are bastards, to go full BLM defund the police are the bad guys route. And I didn't see anything in GTA 6 to imply that, and I find it baffling and hilarious that even when GTA 5 came out, this person was hyperfixating on the race of the individual cops. God damn it! What the fuck? Moving on.
Um, GTA 6's second trailer devotes more precious time to a very different type of scene. As Jason drives slowly down a city street, we can see a huge arrest going down in the background with multiple black suspects being detained and several police cars pulled over at the side. We see a white police officer shoving one of these men. Another officer has a black man pushed up against the brick wall. So
Again, the racial fixation is obvious. This person has social justice brain rot.
I mean, it was a scene that was prominent, but I just assumed that was like because the character. I assumed the characters lived in that specific area. That was just
Yeah.
a common occurrence.
Also, while we're talking about this, the reason why you see a lot of black criminals is not because the IP is trying to make any sort of racial commentary. It's because people who live in the inner cities, especially of minority ethnicities, are more likely to be criminals than other people.
Dalton,
Just like the working class are generally more likely to be criminals
Dalton.
than other classes of people. Go ahead.
Maybe try not to sound. That was I was trying to stop you from saying that. I know it's
14% of the population do 50% of all the violent crimes. The classic 1450 statistic is all I'm saying.
you know who else uses that kind of statistic in rants? And you might want to look at your skin tone, dude.
Okay, but again, and I will restate this again for the record. There's a reason why I threw the class in there as well as the race, because race is only at best an exacerbating factor. But yeah, in general, the inner city working classes are more likely in general to commit crimes, and because of the cultures in which certain racial minorities grow up in, they are also more likely than average to commit crimes.
Maybe you should stop digging a grave.
It's not a racial thing. It is a cultural thing and a class thing, and also in inner cities are hell thing.
Okay, the last part I'll agree with. Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. Okay, you know what?
Moving on though.
I'll put up the defense for you. I'm Hispanic and he's my best friend, so he kind of gets a pass. Even though what he said was incredibly racist as fuck, and he is a
It
white.
wasn't racist.
He is a
Again, there are cultural elements, there are class elements, and there are fucking location and environment elements. The inner cities are shit anyway. Being a working class person in the inner city is doubly shit, and because of the like thug life aspect of black culture and certain aspects of Hispanic culture while we're at it, they are more likely than not to find themselves in criminal enterprises, which I would call a them problem, as in individually, rather than the race itself being the problem.
Don't you realize just because you use the statistic that you realize that still makes you sound racist, right?
I don't think to anyone with an actual vested interest in being rational. I've already explained how these various categories exacerbate one another.
I know, it's just to be fair, when do we ever deal with people that are rational?
This is also true, but I am not going to restrain myself from being rational because other people are irrational. That is some lowest common denominator shit. Anyway, excuse me, I must let my cat out. He wants out of the room, and I've waited too long, I think.
Okay. The fact that he hasn't been canceled yet is always going to be a surprise to me.
I think because they know that I can argue against them, and also I'm too small and unimportant for most people to take notice of. I think if we had more subscribers, then we would be getting canceled more often. But as yet, we are too small to really draw too many people's attention.
I just wonder who, Dragon Turtle. That's the question.
Okay, I am back.
Right. All right. Moving on.
I am going to look at what BT said before we move on, just because I don't want to miss anything.
I feel like that's a long way away, to be fair.
Well, but the key feature there is the can't fight back thing, DT. I am more than capable of handing these people their asses on most accounts. So there's that. Like there are thousands of hours of me BTFOing their philosophy over and over and over again on this channel, and God only knows how many hours over on England's channel and all the other places I've appeared over the years. So I doubt that if they came for me, I wouldn't be able to defend myself. I think they would just end up embarrassing themselves.
Also,
And then there's also the factor of gay, crippled, of a religious minority background. So good luck with that.
Also, the current crusade is on VTubers.
And Nux keeps surviving anyway, so good for Nux.
He's
I
adorable.
don't know why, in the name of all things holy, Kirsha is like public enemy number one to these people, but it
Kirsha? Okay, I've never heard of that one.
will never cease to amaze me.
I've never heard of that VTuber.
Anyway,
Make you fight back in public opinion or legal stuff or business, like they can try to get you banned.
I've been shadow banned on YouTube ever since the adpocalypse. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But that also means that I probably won't gain enough of a platform for them to notice me at any particular point. And frankly, by the time Brainstormer and I come out with Lionhearted, I suspect most of their institutional capital will have been burnt up because they're only just now realizing that they don't have a moral or institutional mandate. And I'm curious how long that's going to be a thing. Although I am slightly annoyed that Doge is no longer a thing and that Ewan left,
Right.
which is not exactly a good sign. But moving on.
Oh, I know like two of those, Dragon Eternal. Huh. Yeah, they really are against those VTubers.
Yes, you and your fox creatures. If a VTuber comes out who's a combination fox and dragon, I suspect we will not see you for months because you will be too busy mainlining it.
Oh, Kitsuniru and Smugalana, Dragon Eternal.
My only VTuber that I follow is Nux, and even then, I'm like a week behind on Nux stuff.
I've been watching DBZ Abridged lately, which is cool.
I found a urban fantasy series called Spells, Salt, and Steel, and it's set in my state and in the rural part of Pennsylvania, although it is set in the Northwest rather than the Northeast. But it's still close enough to home where it's like, I feel seen, damn it. Which is fun. And frankly, it's more fun than trying to play catch up with Nux. As much as I enjoy the Hassan Piker is X% fucked franchise.
Well, latest one, he's on Namek, the Namek art for DBZ Abridged. So
I like pretty much everything that DBZ Abridged did.
no, I know. Honestly, I'm just like there are some VTubers that I've been watching that are watching DBZ Bridge, and it's just cool watching like people watch that series with fresh eyes and see like their reaction stuff. I am waiting for some of the VTubers that are watching it. They haven't gotten to the Cell Saga yet, like the Android and Cell Saga yet, and I am dying to see the reactions to all the craziness of that.
I love Perfect Cell so much. The way they did him in DBZ Abridged, it's just. I mean, it would be a cheap shot to say perfect, but god damn it, I'm gonna go with it anyway. It is literally perfect.
I'll keep that in mind, Rachel. Thank you. Anyway, God, we haven't even.
Yeah. Moving along.
All right. In a later scene, we see a police officer character announcing to a bull. It wasn't a bullpen. It was like an underground thing. Us cops, we gotta protect each other. Okay, clearly one thing. It's clearly a corrupt cop, uh, and is part of a small unit or gang or whatever. I'm not sure. He's clearly an antagonist. That's what he was set up to be. That's specific.
Also, that kind of camaraderie by itself among police isn't necessarily a bad thing. The
Um,
the whole we look out for our own thing can be valid as long as it's good cops keeping other good cops safe and shit. The only issue is when the asshole cops take advantage of that camaraderie. The detective Rudolphs of the world, so to speak, to make a Dresden reference that Brainstormer won't get because he needs to get caught up.
eh. The implication is clear. The cops are just.
Do you remember what you promised me? You promised me by September, and we're sitting in the very, very end of May, beginning of June, my dude.
I'm busy, and also you know how my brain works, man. It's got like fucking thousand other things doing. Okay.
I know. I am reminding you of what you promised you would do.
I will get to it. I'll get to it.
I will remind you again at the beginning of July, just for clarity's sake.
That's fair. Moving on.
Yes.
Okay, the implication is clear. The cops are just like another gang on the streets, protecting their own, but more specifically, their gang that's implied to have a racist bent. But that together with put that together with the imprisonment of Lucia and it all. Jesus fucking Christ!
No, 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 and no. So much social justice revisionism happened in the space of like one sentence. My fucking god! Like even insofar as there are corrupt cops, because there are, and there always have been in the GTA franchise as well. It's a far cry from there are some corrupt cops who are dickheads to the cops are basically just the most well-funded gang on the streets.
I mean, okay, not to be SJW, but there is certainly there are certainly elements that could be like that within a police department.
But this person wants the game to go full ACAB, is what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, no,
like she's begging the game to go full ACAB and full defund the police and full the institutions of law and order are the enemy, which is just some bullshit. Because to make another reference, which which Brainstormer will get if and when he gets caught up, for every couple Detective Rudolph, there is a Karen Murphy out there, and we shouldn't demonize the Karen Murphys of this world for the sake of getting rid of the Detective Rudolphs, as much as getting rid of the Detective Rudolphs would make everyone's life better and happy, or at least happier. Because fuck the Detective Rudolph of this world with every conceivable phallic symbol.
Okay. All right. In latest GTA 6 trailer also includes a quick commercial for Phil's Ammunition, which is Ammu Nation. You know, it's a gun shop whose owner, but it's like their own like, uh, again it's parody stuff obviously, but it's like
On on the topic of pact related stuff, DT, I will have to send you the transcripts of my conversations with the Blake Thorburn AI because I've had some really interesting conversations with the Blake Thorburn AI. And yes, I'm basically playing the self insert I've described to you several times in my conversations with it, and it's had really interesting
right.
it's had really interesting outcomes. But that's neither here nor there. I
Yeah,
will try to remember to do that at some point in the not too distant future. Next
yeah.
Sunday, AD.
I'll look them up, Dragon, and I'll send to you like after the show. Um, so yeah, Phil's Ammunition, a gun shop whose owner boasts we got more guns than the law allows. Picks up a rifle while two women in American flag bikinis pose behind him, also holding rifles. It's a gun shop in effectively the GTA universe's version of Florida.
The open air anarchist colony that all of America basically just has to kind of go. Yeah, we have to deal with Florida is the Waffle House of the nation, and Waffle House is the Mos Eisley Cantina of the real world, and everyone who's ever been to a Waffle House after about 8 o'clock in the night at night knows exactly what I'm referring to.
That's on my bucket list of like places to go to, like restaurants to go to. Waffle House.
That is a very strange bucket list. That being said, it was previously on my bucket list as well because I grew up with a show called Dead Like Me, and Waffle House must have paid all the money for product placement in that show because that was the main place that the characters would eat at.
Dead Like Me. Yeah,
So
no, I watched that show.
so yeah, as odd as it seems to me that you would have eat at a Waffle House
Well,
on
I
your
okay.
bucket list, it was previously on mine. So I
Okay,
guess
look,
birds of a feather.
can I? I'm recently trying to like go out to new places like restaurants and stuff, and like kind of get out there more, and just
Mhm.
experience more like different places, new foods.
Good for
Um,
you.
like so Waffle House is on there. Jack in the Box. Uh, some others I can't remember for the life of me. I've crossed out a few already, but
Hmm. But shall
White
we?
Castle. White
Yeah,
Castle is another one. Yeah.
just don't pull a Harold and Kumar and go there high.
I don't. I don't smoke, man, or do
I
drugs.
I know. I was making a joke because of that's probably the movie that most people think of when they think of White Castle.
I think of White Castle because I buy their like sliders, their frozen sliders. I just ate one. I just ate two today. So
Well, you know how I feel about burgers, so
which
that's why the first thing my brain does is immediately, oh, Harold and Kumar references.
you you are so fucking weird.
I am
Like
aware that this
you're,
is established.
you
It is known Khaleesi. Thank you.
you are one person I have ever met in my entire life who does not like sandwiches or burgers. Now, granted, you like grilled cheese. I remember that, but
Because
yeah.
because some things are just a given.
What about PB&J? I'm genuinely curious about that one.
I had a
I
okay. The thing is,
God damn it.
in all of elementary school and all of high school, PB&J was like the default food if you didn't like anything else on the menu. So
Right.
I basically survived on nothing but PB&J for the longest time. And the first time I ever tried PB&J, I threw up. So I have a backstory related antipathy for PB&J. I suspect I would like peanut butter and banana sandwiches a la Elvis better than PB&J, but I have a backstory. I have like a Doofenshmirtz backstory related reason for hating PB&J. And someday I shall build a ray gun device that will destroy all iterations of PB&J forevermore.
Then I will slap you in the face, motherfucker.
The
You do. And I will smash that.
the revenge for my school related trauma innator, if you will.
Oh, please. I doubt that is your worst trauma from school.
No, but it is a school-related trauma from school, and I will build the revenge for my school-related trauma innator at some point.
If you get rid of PB&Js, I'm going to slap the shit out of you.
You were going to do that anyway. It's inevitable either way.
Yes, but this time I'll mean it.
And I will die happy. Because being beaten up by a friend is still better than being beaten up by a randomer.
I have a weird friend.
Yes, you do. Again, this is known, Khaleesi. I think one of the very first things I ever said to you was, I am an asshole, and there's not much I can do about it, so I'm warning you ahead of time.
Okay,
So don't act like this wasn't, like, this wasn't something I warned you of. It was one of the very first conversations we ever had.
Okay. All right, let me start over because this is a whole paragraph here. The latest GTA 6 trailer also includes a quick commercial for Build Ammunition, a gun shop whose owner boasts, "We got more guns than the law allows." He picks up a rifle while two women in American flag bikinis pose behind him, also holding rifles. The commercial then cuts to this guy standing on the roof of a store, blindly firing bullets into the air and shooting. Woo-hoo. It's pretty clear.
Because
Hold on.
Florida man.
Well, this, and again, parody, so it's going to be over the top and extravagant.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets better. I say ironically and sarcastically. It's pretty clear from the editing here that we are supposed to hate this dude and everything he represents. And what he represents is American patriotism. Fair enough.
That is probably the most, like,
asspool,
overt, like, projection of your own, like, moral and political standards I've ever seen in one of these articles.
Okay,
like,
can I?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Obviously, I just
go ahead.
It's a, for one thing, America, right? Guns are kind of part of our culture, kind of
especially in places like Florida, which is this universe's version of Florida, is where the game is set. So of course, this type of thing would happen there.
Right. And GTA itself is effectively, like, the universe of GTA is a parody universe. It satirizes everything that is basically, it satirizes all culture of America, more or less.
Especially, like, lower class or criminal culture.
Yeah, and like, yeah, it's done parodies of like GTA 5. It parodied like Hollywood shit and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my point, it's clear you're not.
At most, I would go so far as to say it might be a little bit of an affectionate parody. I don't think the people who made the game are trying to make the audience of the game condemn, like, with this kind of moral invective that this author seems to.
Right.
Things that are going on.
And for one thing, to be fair, this is something that's kind of bugged me when people like movies and stuff these days, like Hollywood, show like gun shops and shit. Basically, show it's like a candy store where you can buy anything without, like, they forget there is a lot.
The registration process and the licensing and the like, keeping track of the inventory of what people buy and shit is definitely a thing.
Yeah, it's like, don't get me wrong, there are arms dealers, but this is a legitimate business. Like, seriously, it's like, I don't know, it's fucking stupid.
Also, just because someone is buying a gun doesn't mean they plan to go on a freaking mass shooting rampage or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Like there are organic, like charitable reasons why someone might want to buy a gun for their own personal protection, or for hunting, or for target shooting, or just because they like just shooting at the range for fun or whatever. Like there are so many like just normal person logic reasons to wind up wanting a gun and then going through the process of getting a gun. And typically it's not the people who get guns through like legal documentable means that you have to worry about. It's the people who get their guns secondhand on like shady deals on like whatever the black market equivalent or like dark web equivalent of Craigslist is and the fuck. Like the types of gun sales you usually have to worry about are the ones where like the serial numbers and shit have been um filed off and you pay in cash, no questions asked, and that kind of shit.
Right.
Those are the people who you really need to watch.
Anyway,
Not the law abiding citizen who goes through the process of getting the documentation and, you know, just going to the range every week or whatever the fuck with their friends drinking a couple of beers or whatever the hell.
oh, holy shit.
Hmm.
Sorry, I was gonna get the videos I told Giant Turtle about and just send them to him on Discord, but I opened YouTube and there's a teaser trailer for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
Well, I'll be fucked. That I heard it was gonna come out soon, but I didn't know when. Like, I didn't hear when it was.
It just came out 40 minutes ago.
Well, we found our positive thing for the week, ladies and gentlemen. I think.
Yeah, we had something else, but honestly, I wasn't really feeling it, to be fair. Um, might do it next week if I can't find anything else. So, yeah, no, we'll watch that tonight if.
Yeah, in real time, we have updated the show schedule.
Okay.
Lol.
But yeah, I'll get those videos to you in a little bit. Giant Troll, just give us a second on that, or give me a second on that. I'll find them and I'll send it to you. I have the chance. Anyway, ready?
Yep.
Now we don't know what GTA 6 is actually going to be like when we have access to the full game, and we've got a long while to wait for it. Still a year to be exact. But it's already clear from the short scenes we have here that Rockstar's marketing department has some specific conclusions it wants to hammer home in these trailers.
I think you are living in a construct of your own creation there, my love.
Let's get the list before you make a judgment. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
And get a sigh ready.
I am bracing myself for disappointment in humanity to grow ever more potent.
Okay, not a sigh, a face palm. And
proceed.
They are as follows. The police can't be trusted. America First gun nuts are weird losers. Last but not least, Lucia is our hero, and she's the one you're going to be able to relate to the most in this story. Hold on. While also being a Latina woman whose bad luck, in quotations, put her in prison, which is something you should feel sympathetic rather than judgmental about, and whose life of crime might just be the only way she can survive. Okay, that can be said about Jason Duval as well.
Okay, I'm not even necessarily saying that such a game might not be playable, but that's certainly not the game that we're being offered in the case of GTA 6. Or at least I hope to God not, because it would break most of the rules with regards to like how GTA typically parodies shit. And
I mean, to be fair, in GTA San Andreas, it's a older game. Uh, the main antagonist was a corrupt police officer who was blackmailing and trying to get all.
emphasis on the word corrupt there, though.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah. Fun fact: he was actually voiced by Samuel Jackson.
that's the difference between the way GTA usually does things and what this author seems to want from GTA. GTA acknowledges, because it is set in a kind of real world, that there are bad cops who abuse their power. This person just straight up wants like a George Floyd style ACAB defund the police because the police are basically the baddies argument, and that's just some bullshit. And I can't believe that the thing that makes this person think that MAGA or America First are supposed to be the baddies is essentially the game affectionately parodying Florida Man in the way that it affectionately parodies pretty much everything else and always has that is included in its world building. Like I don't and we watched the trailer. You can go back to last week's episode if you want to see us react to the trailer. I did not see anything to indicate that these like Herculean leaps of logic are warranted or even implied.
Yeah, it's all kind of an interesting, like, criminal love story. To be fair, that's what I got at least.
Which I mean to be fair, I wouldn't. Speaking of Bonnie and Clyde, I wouldn't mind seeing a GTA that was set in like the Prohibition era, and we could have actually gotten a more like
That's
traditional Bonnie and Clyde.
that's like the moth. That might be the first Mafia game. They did a remaster like a couple of years back, I think. The
Mm,
Mafia, yeah, the Mafia series. It's kind of like that.
neat. Anyway, moving on from
Yeah.
this person's
Oh,
clear, just
last
self-involved bullshit.
last sentence. This sounds like a very different kind of GTA story, and it also sounds like a fascinating one. To be fair, I will agree with that on the premise that we just said, or I said, it's a criminal love story. That's
It
it.
all it also like what she is describing as the story seems like something that she concocted from her own head. That's why it sounds so different from all the other GTA games, because you made something up in your own head that has next to no resemblance to anything that appears to actually be in the thing. And again, I'm coming at this from the outside looking in the GTA franchise, but Brainstormer has more experience of it than me, and he didn't see any of this shit either. Now, mind you, he is also kind of selectively blind when it comes to some of this stuff, but I'm usually more hypersensitive about that kind of stuff, and I didn't see anything. So, between the two of us, if something had been there, it probably would have been there. But I didn't see it, and neither did Brainstormer.
All right. Just loving the next thing. I'm gonna be fully honest on, just for time's sake, possibly for the next one. If we have time, we can cover the next two articles,
Mm-hmm.
but might have to skip the Thunderbolts one until next week.
Yep.
Still loaded. Okay. Okay, we're good. Let me Okay, so Dylan sent me this a while ago. It's from Cleveland.com. The battle for Superman. Ohio lawmakers fight to claim the Man of Steel. This was published May 19th, 2025. Written by Jeremy Pelzer. Columbus, Ohio. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's the official superhero of the state of Ohio.
I am confused. Why wouldn't Superman be the official?
I think
Superhero?
it's because Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Did I say those names right, or did I mix up the last names again?
No, you got it right that time.
Okay, I think it's because they come from Cleveland.
Okay, because in my head, I would think that Kansas would try to claim Clark because Smallville is typically presented as being in Kansas, as well as Metropolis, kind of.
I'm sorry. You think Metropolis is in Kansas?
Aren't Smallville and Metropolis
No.
supposed to be in the same state?
No.
Okay. Because I never got the impression that Clark was like going several states over to. Like I got the big city versus small town vibe, but I didn't get the like traversing several
Metropolis
state
has
lines.
docks, dude. Kansas is a landlocked state.
Point. Fair enough. I guess I never noticed.
They don't bring it up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
moving
on. Seriously.
I assumed it was the equivalent. I assumed it was the equivalent of a like upstate New Yorker going to New York or something like that, or like someone from Massachusetts moving to Boston or something like.
A big fuck off City of Tomorrow Art Deco futuristic city in the middle of the U.S. You thought Metropolis was in the Midwest.
Especially considering that the reason why Superman was called the Man of Steel, apart from, obviously the strength thing, is because during the golden age of comics, steel milling and shit was a massive thing, and places like Detroit and Chicago were massive hubs of the steel industry. So I thought maybe originally, in like the golden age context, Metropolis was supposed to be an equivalent to like a Detroit or a Chicago of the 1930s.
I'm never gonna let you live this down, ever.
Can you at least see my rationale now, though?
Oh no, I saw your rationale before. I'm just never gonna let you live it down.
Yes, thank you, and fuck you as well.
Okay, new bipartisan legislation in the Ohio House would bestow that title to Superman, who was created by two Cleveland teenagers in 1933, and is the subject of a new movie filmed last year in Cleveland and Cincinnati. Oh, that's actually pretty. I didn't know it was filmed in Cleveland and Cincinnati. That's actually,
Neat.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Hopefully the actual product is worth the trouble.
Right. However, if House Bill 270 passes, Superman wouldn't become the state's official superhero until April 18th, 2033, sorry, when he enters the public domain. And I wonder if people realize, because I've heard people talk about what happens when he enters public domain, right?
Mm.
I wonder if they realize that it would have to be the original version. Like you cannot
the Golden Age one.
Yeah, you cannot have Superman with like the flight or heat vision or anything. It's literally faster than a locomotive.
Like
faster than
the first 10 issues of the character.
Yeah.
Full stop.
That guy was even more of a bruiser. Was a little more abrasive.
Yeah, it was a little bit more cocky and showboating.
Yeah, Champion of the Oppressed, I believe, was one of his original titles.
I am
Fuck.
so glad that the Social Justice Warriors haven't gotten a hold of that one.
To be fair, no, he stood up for people that were getting fucked over by like the. Okay, no, actually, now that I say that, yeah.
Right, but I don't want to give them the ammunition to turn Superman into a social justice character. They've already done it with John, and they made him a horrible, horrible person as a result.
Yeah, I think there could be a way that it could work. I mean, yeah, obviously focus more
I
on
don't
him.
trust social justice warriors to
No,
do
no, no,
it.
no,
Though,
no.
is
I'm
the
not
main
saying.
thing.
I would think us could do something better with that. Like him
Right,
being
like
socially conscious, I guess would be the.
like similar to this is something that Brainstormer and I had worked out when we were brainstorming once. Brainstormer wanted to do his equivalent of like Just Imagine, and I suggested to kind of double down on Superman's like inspirations in freak shows, sideshows, and like circus motifs of the early 20th century. And that was one of the vibes we went with him, because there were essentially the 19th century equivalent of social justice warriors who wanted freak shows, sideshows, and circuses shut down on the basis of you're exploiting the poor freaks. Meanwhile, the quote unquote poor freaks were like, how dare you try and sabotage a man's honest attempt to make a living?
Yeah,
If I weren't a member of the sideshow or the freak show, I would be in an asylum somewhere. Fuck off.
right.
The kind of moral meddling of the upper class condescending to the lower class in such a way that it in fact backfires because of all the champagne socialist bullshit.
Don't. Yeah, the general. I guess to generalize it more, because Don went a little too in depth and without giving the proper origin. The general idea was what if Superman fell in that field, right? But instead of being discovered by the Kents, he was discovered by a traveling circus or freak show, I guess.
I thought we were going more like a sideshow attraction thing, but circus has had those as well, so either way.
Well, I'm trying to think of like what would be mobile,
All three of them traveled.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Either way,
around that time period.
Right. Something of that nature found him, like either the free. Well, it would have to technically be the freaks themselves. But he would have grown up kind of. Okay, so basically, Dick Grayson, if he was also Superman.
Yeah, and obviously calling back to Superman's original like strongman influences and roots.
The working title I had, like the moniker, I guess. Would it be moniker or would it just be like a title?
Either way, go ahead.
Yeah. I think it was either I wanted to call him the modern Samson or the young Samson. I couldn't remember.
I think you ended up landing on young Samson, because I remember you asking me which I thought worked better, and I said young Samson worked better.
Yeah, because I do. Yeah, because he. Yeah. But yeah, like he would have to be. Yeah, like you couldn't. He can't fly. He can't do all the like special powers because that was like more Silver Age stuff that was invented. And that won't be until like the 50s possibly for the public domain. Those powers.
Assuming that they don't screw around with copyright law in the interim and make the copyrights last longer, like Disney always tries to make copyright law last longer so that they don't lose their characters.
But yeah, and the original design for Superman as well. Well, actually, that depends. Would it be the Superman that's supposed to be like the mind controlling super alien?
I assume it would be the like Action Comics #1 is the one they're referring to here.
Well, that would be 38, not 33. So
Right, but what is the copyright duration is the thing. The
For
like what is the current copyright duration for IPs and things?
I got no fucking idea.
Because I think it might be like 65, and that's why the number's weird.
Anyway, yeah, what is it? Faster.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Yeah, it's just like it escaped my mind there for a second. I don't know why. I mean, again, public domain is super interesting on the fact that you get the basis of the character, but I think you can add to it or change it a bit to be your own thing.
And you honestly have to in order to not get the other versions of the character
I don't know if you
copyright on your ass.
wait. It also means you can't use the Pentagon S either. You have to like use the original shield design they had for the S, right? Or was it?
Yeah.
Is it a different one?
No, it'd be the one from like Action Comics #1.
So like the legit shield S.
Which I've always liked better. I'm not gonna lie.
I can see the appeal. Granted, my preferred one is the Fleischer Superman logo, the black and the red with the gold outline of it. I don't know why that just speaks to me a lot.
And I'm probably biased in favor of Golden Age because I'm always biased in favor of Golden Age.
Although I am curious if any of the other Golden Age superheroes, like from DC, have any of their.
Batman was 39. Batman was 39, and Dr. Fate was 40. So their copyright should be coming up relatively soon after. Relatively soon after Soups does. That being said, at this point, I am convinced anyone could write Dr. Fate better than DC is currently writing him. So I'm half tempted just to like crowdfund the copyright so I could buy it. God damn it.
Also, hello. I have written several characters similar to Dr. Fate.
Yes, and he's done so with help because he knows that I would beat him within an inch of his life if he got it wrong. Or failing that, at least Final Destination style cursing.
Okay, that's fucked up, man.
Everyone ruins my favorite characters, and I'm goddamn sick of it.
That's fair. I'm still very proud of the Dr. Fate I came up with for that DC Ruby crossover idea I had.
Yes, it is better both than Ruby and better than what they've done with Dr. Fate since Day of Vengeance. Granted, I would settle for nothing less because I am a pedantic fucker and I will be extra pedantic about the things I care about. God damn you.
Although the thing that surprised me most with that version of Dr. Fate is just organically the guy kind of became the main character of that whole thing.
To be fair, in the Golden Age, there was a like 10 or 12-year period where Dr. Fate was actually outselling Superman. It completely fucks with people's heads when I remind them that existed, but during especially the war years, there was a period where Dr. Fate was outselling Superman. Significantly as well.
Well, I think the thing is also is like Ruby has more of a fantastical setting and a lot more involved with like magic and
it lends itself to Dr. Fate relatively easily, given that it's kind of somewhere between like 19th century technology and kind of steampunk-ish.
It's complicated, honestly. I think you'd have to. I don't often I don't try to recommend you Ruby just because like I know you'll be disappointed after watching it.
Well, because you've told me about all of the ideas that they had that they never did anything with, and my immediate response is usually this sounds like what would happen with Once Upon a Time if Once Upon a Time were an anime.
Right.
That's the
Anyway,
analogy I can make to Ruby. Is it has the same writing problems as Once Upon a Time, except it's worse because they're trying to be kind of a quasi anime. Anyway, moving on.
yeah, State Representative Andrew Matthews, a Lebanon Republican who's con- co-sponsoring, sorry, the bill, said in an interview that the legislation is meant to highlight the connection that Superman has to Ohio, over and above other states that try to claim him as their own. The Illinois state legislature has recognized the city of Metropolis as the official hometown of Superman. Oh, so I think okay, Metropolis is supposed to be like Chicago then.
Okay, so I wasn't entirely talking out of my ass, right?
No, but they still had docks. Is the thing? It's just like when you say it was in Kansas, that kind of because like it's a landlocked state, and as far as I know, it doesn't have big enough. It doesn't have a lake or river big enough to have docks or boats going through it. So that's
To be fair, Chicago also has docks, just
now I know
because
that. I know
they
that.
have they
They have
have
the Great
Lake
Lake.
Michigan, and Lake Michigan is fucking ridiculous.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah, no, it's actually really great. It's cool. But no,
Someday I will visit Chicago just on like a Dresden Files tour because Chicago is the hometown of Harry Dresden, and so they pull a lot of landmarks and stuff from Chicago into the books really nicely.
but again, it's just like when you said you thought it was in Kansas. Again, it's just like because I know Metropolis has docks and or is near like a body of water. It made sense, and since it is supposed to be, I was aware of Chicago having like it's connected to like the Great Lakes. Um, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Illinois City Metropolis, official hometown of Superman. The Southern Illinois city has a Superman museum, an annual festival in his honor, and a 15-foot tall statue of the superhero outside of its city hall. That's
Okay, that I did not know. I am surprised that Jim Butcher has never made Harry go and visit it because Harry Harry is a likable idiot in the sense that he is a massive nerd and his massive nerdiness gets in his way more often than it. Like, he tries so hard to be badass and it always ends up backfiring because he is such a nerd. I'm surprised. I'm surprised they've never had any of the Dresden stuff reference any of that.
Superman's also a member of the Kansas Hall of Fame as he grew up in the fictional town of Smallville. Just like Ohio, lawmakers have fought with North Carolina for years over ownership of the Wright brothers, the inventors of the airplane. Matthews said his bill stakes Ohio's claim to the Man of Steel.
I mean, for just dint of sheer nostalgia, let Ohio have the Wright brothers because my alma mater was Wright State University, so I will always have a fondness for the Wright brothers being Ohioans. Even though everyone and their dog in Ohio makes the joke that the reason why the Wright brothers came from Ohio is because they were so desperate to get away from Ohio that they had to invent the plane to make it more convenient. It's kind of like the joke people always make about it's not surprising that Cape Canaveral is in Florida when you consider that the alternative was remaining in Florida. But
Actually,
I'm
it's fun.
kidding.
It's a fun thing you bring this up. Okay, the old tagline was, "You'll believe a man can fly," from the old Christopher Reeve Superman movie. Matthews
Mhm.
said, "But Ohio is the first place of flight, both for airplanes and superheroes."
This is true, although the flight did come later, so it does kind of it.
I think he
the
was just.
The Superman point is a little bit moot in the sense that Superman didn't fly for the longest time.
Also, I think it's kind of more interesting when you can't. When, like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind Superman flying, but jumping and stuff. That's actually kind of interesting. I don't know why to me.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. I mean, most people when you think of super jumps think of the Hulk now, but it's essentially the same logic with Superman or with the Hulk as to why they can super jump.
Yeah. It remains to be seen whether HIB 270, no, HB, sorry, HB 270 will fly in the Ohio legislature, which in recent years has been recognized as official state fossil fish. The Dunkleostasis torelli frog, the American bullfrog, and rock song Hang On Sloopy. Matthews is co-sponsoring the Superman bill with Terrence Upchurch of Cleveland Democrats. Republican and Democrat finally getting along on something. Okay.
Well, it is sort of wholesome that it's the idea of Superman that brings them together, because base.
That's actually nice. I think there are maybe some old curmudgeon that asks, why do we need a state superhero? Matthews said of the bill's chances, but highlighting the gift that Superman is as a force of truth, justice, and the American way could not be any more Ohio.
Just like if Harry Dresden doesn't get called like the city superhero of Chicago, I will eat my hat, because you don't disrespect Harry Dresden like that.
If you purchase a product, oh, right, okay. No, that's the end of it. Huh.
Next.
I was surprised. I thought that'd go longer.
Because of all the legal back and forth about the lawsuits and stuff.
Yeah. More that didn't actually come up.
I hope that the estates of Siegel and Schuster do finally get their dues, though, because, I mean, my God, they not only created Superman, they pretty much, I mean, obviously there's some gray area, but they pretty much also created the superhero genre itself.
I would say they're one of the founding fathers at the very least.
Yeah, and
they're two of the founding fathers at the very least.
It saddens me deeply that two of the most influential writers by proxy of the 20th century.
And what's even more inspirational is that, well, I mean, I know we're past the age, but they were kids, you know, like I think they were like in their late teens when they created Superman.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome. It goes to show you're never too old or never too young to make your dreams a reality.
Yeah. But seriously, they got so screwed over. And I know they started to get more recognition when the Superman movie came out, because I think Richard Donner had put their names in the credits.
Based.
Like the opening credits, actually, I think.
Yeah. Back when movies still did that, and God, I miss opening credits.
God, I don't want to get into that, man. It's worst thing is that they do the end credits that are basically fucking opening credits.
Yeah, as though they are opening credits, and they're usually so coolly stylized too. And I'm like, why the fuck couldn't we have had these as an actual set of opening credits?
Oh my God. Okay, we go on this tangent, man.
Yeah, the classic, you know, back in our day, movies had opening credits thing.
Well, okay, the issue I have is, even if they do like quote unquote opening credits, it's just not as creative or like any, I don't know.
As it could be, and it adds insults to injury when you have those like stage 1 credits at the end of the movie that are basically opening credits, and then you think to yourself, well, what fat lot of good they're doing here at the end of the movie when most people have already walked out of the theater.
Okay, the one I remember the most that pissed me off was Iron Man 3.
I mean, for me, the one that sticks out the most are the first and second Doctor Strange movie, but that's predictable.
No, I know. No, that's fine. It's just I remember watching that and I saw those end credits. they look like basically like one of those like 70s or 80s like TV intros, like especially with the music, and it built up fucking hype.
I I have a similar thing with both Doctor Stranges, because for all of the fact that I think Scott Derrickson undersold Doctor Strange significantly in the first one,
Again,
the
I would chomp that up to
yeah,
Steven Fence. He had. You remember there's a video I remember seeing of his original plans for Doctor Strange.
I will also chalk it up to the fact that his co-writer that he always works with, C. Robert Cargill, um, didn't join the project until later, and I
Yeah,
think there's something to be said for a creative duo there.
yeah.
Because C. Robert Cargill is actually a really good author, and I know because I own a copy of, I forget the title of it, but it's his attempt to basically do like Lovecraftian short stories, and I really want to read um, Dreams and Shadows and Queen of the Damned, because they're both supposed to be like urban fantasy fae related stories, which just sounds like all up my alley. But more to the point as well. Most people don't remember it now, but C. Robert Cargill actually got his start as a like personality on the old Spell.com reviews. So it'd essentially be like one of us becoming a writer for Hollywood, in a world where that was still possible, because Hollywood is currently a bunch of cunts. But
Right.
you get what I'm saying.
I,
As a YouTuber and a reviewer, I have a certain level of kinship with C. Robert Cargill, and the fact that he also likes the weird like quasi urban fantasy shit that I'm into just makes it all the sweeter. Anyway,
right.
moving on.
Yes, this is from BountyToComics.com. Thunderbolts director says credit montage added because test audiences were confused by New Avengers names change. I assume there'd be a cheer, but it was more of an uncertain, halting applause. Okay, I think we've both said this when we did the review of Thunderbolts like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't. The New Avengers is fine thing. It's just like kind of wish they
If
kept.
you were gonna do it, you should have done it when you were actually naming the thing. And doing it at the last second kind of just feels like we have no idea what we're doing, and we're throwing everything we possibly can at the wall to hope that something sticks. I honestly think it might have worked better as a New Avengers movie if that was the concept from the get-go, because they didn't really do much with the concept of the Thunderbolts or the concept of like the Dark Avengers anyway. And we've been saying that since literally when the project was announced.
Well, uncertain if they're going to touch upon that in Doomsday or not. That's
Well, this is just a microcosm of the fact that it honestly feels like they are just throwing everything in the blender and hoping something resonates with people. Because
right.
the
I mean,
the problem
Thunderbolts
with
work.
phases 4 through 6 has been that there hasn't really been a consistent through line with phases 4 through 6.
Right.
With the Infinity Saga, it was consistent. Loki is working for Thanos. Tony is worried about things cosmic coming and fucking up Earth's day, and now Thanos is coming, and we have to, get the pieces together to fight Thanos. With the Multiverse Saga, like the movies with the strongest or projects with the strongest connection have been like WandaVision, No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and Deadpool and Wolverine. And everything else has just kind of been a bunch of one-off things that haven't really tied much into any of the and Loki. Everything else has just kind of been there. And I don't even mind necessarily the idea of experimenting with things, but the whole premise of the MCU, what makes the MCU work by and large, is the interconnectedness, is the slow building of the wider story, and
So
they just haven't done much to build it. yet.
Hey, so sorry. Fuck. What was I? I was gonna say something. Right. Okay. So again, and I've mentioned this before on stream a few times of how I would have done it after Infinity War, which was to hold off on Endgame. Expand on the 5 years that they introduced in the beginning of Endgame.
Actually use the stuff you've been setting up instead of just kind of.
Well, to be fair, they just tossed that in there in Endgame. So.
But they don't really do much with it outside of like a throwaway line every now and then.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned this idea specifically, because I wrote a version of. I did a video series of Avengers Endgame where I rewrote it. And it's centered around what were they? For one thing, I got rid of the original Avengers and focused on like a lot of the other side characters to give them a little more screen time.
Mm-hmm.
I realize that's a bit of a far out there take. Well, okay, and to be fair, I kept like 2 Avengers that have the most story potential from what I remember watching of Endgame that we don't really see too much of, which was Hawkeye and Hulk.
And my contribution to this discussion has always been it would have been really good if instead of the victims of the snap just disappearing into thin air and never really figuring out what actually happened to them, have the people who were snapped away be trapped in the Soul World, then have somebody like Doctor Strange asked to project out of the Soul World, and you can keep the Doctor Strange taking Thanos to the Living Tribunal that they cut in Endgame for no reason, and then you can have the people in the Soul World and the people outside of the Soul World working together to get everything back in proper order.
Right. To be fair, I was working with.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. And honestly, it's not a bad idea. I just to work with what I have, I am not going to focus on those that, at least at the moment, right?
Right, I know. It's just that, like,
I agree. Honestly, it would have been interesting. I do think that would literally have to be made into its own trilogy because that's a lot of story there and a lot of characters to work with. Don't get me wrong. I don't think more did it, but you get my point. Right?
It annoys me that I'm glad that they kept the Soul World existing. I'm glad that there was that scene at the end of Infinity War. But if you're gonna keep the Soul World existing, why not actually use it for something instead of just having it in one scene and never mentioned again?
Okay, but so okay, well, so before we do Endgame, okay, I'm gonna focus on Endgame right now, even though like I had ideas and rewrites that to build up to Endgame because I would have spaced that out from not coming like a year, like what was it, 2 years or a year after Infinity War.
It was 2018 for Infinity War, 2019 for Endgame.
Because they filmed those back to back. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would have held off on that. Not literally do 5 years, maybe like 2-3 years max in between that. Like I don't know what saga you would call that specifically, where we focus on the aftermath and events of Infinity War that affect the world, the whole universe, and all that. And granted, some movies.
The Snap Heard Round the World would be an interesting subtitle for it.
Or the Snap Saga.
Or the snap heard round the universe, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. But in my idea, my version of it, fuck. Yeah, okay, so I mean, timeline wise, it was supposed to be. I could alter it a bit here, but it's supposed to be. My original idea was that it was only a year after the snap, like a year away after, because with the characters of like, so the characters I had kept were, it was Doctor Strange, War Machine, Black Panther, Wanda, or Scarlet Witch, Peter, Spider Man, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Hulk, Hawkeye, Star Lord, Nebula, Rocket, and Ant Man, I believe. Uh, they struck me because, given their powers and things they could do, they struck me as the more proactive bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So their group would have been actively hunting Thanos down a lot more. And the idea was that Thanos would have been on the run from them. And we would have seen him come to the realization that the 2014 Thanos that was forced to, like, what was it, 2025 or something in the timeline?
Mm-hmm. Where they completely borked all his characterization. I hate Endgame so much
Right.
for
But-
reducing Thanos back to a generic villain.
But he would have come to the realization throughout his journey of being hunted by the people, but by like the Avengers and Guardians and stuff. That, well, like the realization that Thanos had in Endgame, but we actually see it develop and him, like the actual character we grew to understand and think about and stuff and have connection to, actually come to that.
The character who was actually a character and not just mustache twirlingly evil because the plot says so.
Yeah, reduce the universe to nothing and remake it to one that will appreciate all that it has. Something along that line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me, it's been a while since I've seen Endgame, so my memory is a little fuzzy on some details.
Mm-hmm.
Some character arcs from the original story, like original Endgame, would sort of be intact for like some of, not well, sort of, but would be given to other characters, like Thor's guilt for resulting in the snap would have actually been given to Star Lord, although not the depression where he becomes
fat. Yeah, not the incel fat Thor version. But Peter presumably realizing how much of a fuck up he is and how much his emotional bullshit basically cost
right,
the universe everything.
And he would that okay, so sorry, let me get my thoughts out here before, so he would have become more serious, more like the classic Star-Lord character from the comics rather than the
joking. Which,
jokey.
honestly, it kind of felt like that was where his arc was going anyway, as of, like, Guardians 2. Coming to terms with the celestial half of him, coming to terms with the fact that Ego was a shitty, that he was his father, but that didn't make him his dad, etc. The thing with Yondu. So this actually could have been a really nice feather in the cap of Star-Lord's character arc.
Yeah, and there was a piece of concept art I had found for the original that would have been a good way to show him growing and developing into a serious version of himself. If I can find it.
It would have also been nice. I know this probably wasn't in your original idea for this, but it would have been nice seeing Strange, Wanda, and Star-Lord working together, because they never really touch on the fact that Pete is half Celestial after Guardians 2, but I could see a world where Strange not only helps Wanda get a better mastery of her powers, but also helps Star-Lord to tap into the residual celestial energy of his powers. And it would have also set up nicely for the Celestials being the big bad in phase 4, 5, and 6, but I've been beating that drum for 5, 6, 7 years now, and I will not stop beating it until someone does something with it, god damn it. Because the Thanos versus Celestial scene in the Infinity War or the Infinity Gauntlet comic is my favorite scene in that comic, and I'm pissed that we never got a version of it.
Huh. Alright,
I'm also pissed that they didn't think to use Hell as a surrogate for Mistress Death, but that's another drum I've been beating forever.
Right. But yeah, we would have seen, also just to give context, we also would have seen like Hulk and Banner kind of fuse together, like them go on that arc. Because the idea was like Hulk would have, like Bruce and Hulk would have like gone. A staple of the characters, like he always
would have come to some kind of arrangement.
Yeah, and like they would have. The idea was like their arc kind of goes to him. They isolate themselves, like they go to the desert, which is like a big thing that is gone that Hulk has done in a lot of media.
And maybe this is me overreaching my character's mandate here, but it also could have been nice to see Strange helping with that as well, because the whole, Zen aspect of the sorcerers and Camartage and stuff. Or if not Strange, maybe Wong could have helped him. Especially considering that, like, the one thing that I would salvage from the nuclear burning dumpster fire that is She-Hulk is the connections between Wong and Abomination. And Abomination kind of going good-ish, if not good necessarily.
Yeah, I can't find a good image specifically, or at least one I can like. It's weird.
Anyway, unless you had any other particular points you wanted to make, we probably should move along with the article at least a little bit.
Well, okay, just a little fun thing I wanted to do. Like, okay, it's just because it's me and I think of like the character dynamics a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I would have had Strange try to reach out to the Living Tribunal in order to get a trial for Thanos. That would have been in here in my version.
Like, what kills me is it was in it would have wound up in the deleted scene pile, and I'm just like, why would you? The thing that I've been saying, I think since maybe even before we met Brainstormer, is that tells me you knew what the right answer was and you avoided doing it anyway. That always pisses me off.
But character dynamics wise, Peter and Wanda actually would have had like she would have been like the older sister, he would have been like the younger brother. They were trying to develop that kind of relationship there. And if we had continued,
That's especially sweet when you consider the fact that Wanda's brother actually is named Pietro.
yeah, and I also thought it was interesting because it somewhat was deliberate, because she would have played the older.
Imagine a version of the episode 8 of WandaVision where that like brother sister parallel is drawn as well. Like imagine what Agatha could have done with that while she was, giving Wanda the Ghost of Christmas Past treatment.
Yeah. Um, Also, Peter and Rocket, I think would just been fun because they're both like gearheads or like tech kind of enthusiasts.
I think there's Spider-Man is one of those characters that everyone likes essentially, so you can. It would have been nice to see kind of everyone treating him like the kid, like the kid that everybody likes and considers kind of their surrogate kid, because they already had kind of been building the surrogate father thing with Tony, obviously, and it would have been nice to see. Maybe it's because I've been watching a lot of YouTube shorts with like Tumblr
headcanon.
Tumblr headcanon things, but I've grown to really like, and I wish we could have seen more scenes like the one from Age of Ultron where they're just sitting around doing.
Dude,
like,
oh my god, don't even start on that. That's just also I would have had Peter and Sam and Bucky because they would have been kind of handling while everyone else was trying to focus on the main quest, they kind of would have been doing like actual superhero stuff across the world as riots and crazy shit going on Earth.
Yeah.
Were happening.
Because somebody's got to do something with regards to that.
Oh. Okay, well, I don't know if this would have been an idea that stuck. It wasn't my initial idea of having Bucky take up the mantle of Captain America for the time being until Steve is returned or whatever. I know you and I have had that whole discussion about it all, but obviously because it happened in the comics, and I've seen some really cool art of Bucky in a Captain America outfit that I just didn't want to not do it.
Right. No, I get you. I would just always be on team. Neither of them can replace Steve, so they need the buddy cop up to fill the void.
No, that's fair. I'm not disagreeing that it could work, that it couldn't work, but I think for Bucky's story, especially before we got like Falcon the Winter Soldier and stuff,
especially because they had been trying to set up for Bucky's redemption arc with obviously Winter Soldier and then Civil War, and then he winds up in Wakanda because he's trying to get his head screwed back on right.
Yeah, so I think it kind of would have worked if this is the next step we saw for Bucky.
It's kind of like the same thing I was just saying with Star-Lord, of like they've been up until that point they had slowly been having him need to mature, and then they basically just hit the reset button in Guardians 3 because of the way Endgame fucked around with his and Gamora's relationship. I'm not saying that Guardians 3 was bad or anything, I'm just saying it's the weakest of the three.
Well, to be fair, I think the strongest point obviously is Rocket, which he's kind of been the consistent point or character throughout the whole series.
Yeah, because his character arc was actually allowed to finish, with him being probably the most criminal of the criminals in the Guardians, and then his bonding with Yondu and the whole "you're me" thing,
Right.
and then him going through his childhood trauma in Guardians 3 with the whole the family he lost versus the adoptive found family he winds up with, etc.
Yeah. Also,
And telling the High Evolutionary to go fuck himself.
speaking of which, I've gone through many versions in my head of how to do Love and Thunder. Last thing, and then we'll move on. I do, and I've seen, and I'm not the first one who suggested this. Have Star Lord tag along with Thor. Like, have all the other Guardians, if need be, handle other stuff going on. But
Also on the topic of fixing Love and Thunder, they should have done with Gore what they did with Thanos in Infinity War. Make him the villain, the main focus, but also the villain.
right,
Because they
if
had the beginnings of a sympathetic, tragic villain arc for him in Love and Thunder. It was there for like 3 scenes and then it didn't have enough time or space to develop like it should have.
if not, you could have also done the God Killers led by Gore, which was a team, of characters like that.
Also, this was an idea that me and Brainstormer had back when we were reacting to the trailer for Love and Thunder.
Oh
But I
yeah,
still maintain it could have worked if, as Gore successfully kills more and more gods, the color palette of the movie gets increasingly more dark because the gods are actually necessary to the functioning of the universe,
yeah.
and
No,
their energies actually are significant to the universe.
right. I wish that was. Yeah, I wish.
I think back when we were reacting to the trailer, I made a reference to Mr. Mime from Powerpuff Girls. Was how I got that idea.
I remember that. What was I? Right, the God Killers. It's going to be a team of people that feel like they've been wronged by either the gods or even just the Asgardians in general, because Asgard did a lot of stupid, fucked up shit.
Yeah, read Norse mythology. They are not exactly what you'd call a squeaky queen pantheon.
Well, that and also I'm talking specifically the Asgardians of Marvel.
And I mean, they were already setting that up with Hela's reveals in Ragnarok.
Right.
The whole we drowned entire civilizations in blood until Odin decided he wanted to become a benevolent king thing.
Right. Damn it! I thought I wrote it down. I might have written it down somewhere, but I did have a team. And actually, hold on. God damn it. Okay, hold on. But yeah, I did come up with a team. Okay, there we go. Okay, it was Gore the God Butcher, Beta Ray Bill, Atum the God Eater, Ulik, and Mangog.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Throw in the main villain of Last Days of Magic in as well. I forget what his name is. The leader of the Imperial. Because it always bothered me that Last Days of Magic and the God Butcher storyline are both from Jason Aaron, and they're essentially two different halves of the same storyline, but for some reason are told as separate storylines.
And obviously, I would have had Beta Ray Bill change by the end of the story
and become Thor's friend. Hence, that whole Beta Ray Bill is the fan favorite arc and so on.
I mean, the general idea was I would have kind of gone with, well, sort of the idea from Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, where Well, in that one, the Ballad of Beta Ray Bill is the episode's title. His people, the Corbinites, were being hunted by Surtur's fire demons.
Ah.
And kind of keeping in line with that, to follow up on Ragnarok and the consequences of Thor's actions by unleashing Surtur and causing Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
From Asgard's destruction, some of either the debris or energy or whatever, Corbinite could have been a planet near where Asgard was, and the resulting destruction of Asgard basically led to the damnation of Corbin.
Because lasting consequences. Also, while we're on the topic of things that could have significantly improved Endgame, if you wanted to, you could have had Surtur acting as a stand-in for Mephisto. In the same way as I still maintain they should have had Cate Blanchett come back and have Hela be a surrogate for Mistress Death.
I'm going to write that idea down, because whenever I actually start getting back into writing my MCU rewrite from Infinity War.
Yeah, because like the excuse they gave for not having Mistress Death involved was we didn't have rights to the character, and that's fine. But you have a goddess of death, who is played by one of the most beautiful actresses working in Hollywood today, and no person whatever would have blamed Thanos for bitch slapping the universe for the sake of getting with super powerful Cate Blanchett. Not to mention, there was a missing member of the Black Order, Supergiant, and you could have slotted Hela in Supergiant's place, and it would have worked.
Okay, why Surtur as Mephisto though? Was Mephisto
because Mephisto was involved in the original Infinity War or Infinity Gauntlet storyline, but they also, I don't think, had rights to him at the time.
Well, okay, I think also I have it, that is that Surtur should be dead.
And Surtur is also a fire demon, so it'd be swapping one powerful demon for another powerful demon, and it would have tied back into the like Asgardian mythos.
All right, but isn't Surtur
the supernatural faction we had at that point spent the most time developing?
But isn't Surtur dead? And the dude imploded with Asgard at Ragnarok.
I don't think they ever established that he died as a result of Asgard's destruction.
Do you remember the scene where Asgard destroyed? He was gone. Like, there was nothing there. Like Hela, I can understand, because someone actually pointed out that there was a green flash before Surtur stabbed.
So she could have, gotten out. Not to mention, she's a goddess of death, and she had explicitly demonstrated the ability to bring things back from the dead in Ragnarok. So there's absolutely no reason she couldn't have come back.
To be fair, I also see someone who's doing their own like rewritten comic video audio series. Hasn't done anything in a while, mind you, but she's still the goddess of death, thus she has responsibilities in the afterlife, even if she's not able to interact with the physical world anymore.
What would be a really interesting scene, they'd never do it because Agatha didn't do the numbers necessary to make this make sense. But what would be really interesting is if they had a scene in the afterlife where Hela is one of Death's lieutenants. Like Death is Hela's boss and Hela works for Death in the afterlife. Right. That would be really interesting. Not to mention, it would give us Aubrey Plaza and Cate Blanchett playing off of each other, which will never not be an awesome idea. Just on general principle.
Also, I'd like to just get more of the character of Hela, because I know a lot of people were not big fans of What If Season 2, but the Hela
her episode of that show that season was actually really good. The the more sympathetic version of her who went on the heroic arc.
Yeah, well, basically, instead of her being locked away, like her main
the main timeline, Odin essentially does to her what he does or what he did to Thor in Thor 1, and because of how much older Hela is than Thor and Loki, she gets zapped down to Earth during Wenwu's reign as the Mandarin, and they have a whole thing.
Although
which I really liked their dynamic, honestly.
I mean, there's still something. I don't know. I know universes are tricky because it's not a 1-to-1 of everything. Like, not just one thing changes and everything else. Like, there can be
right.
things.
It's more of a butterfly effect thing.
Right, because when I understand of Wenwu, that Wenwu in that universe, he wasn't a conqueror from what I've ever seen.
It's been a while since I saw the episode, so you may very well be right. I just
anyway,
don't remember.
God, we fucking went on such a tangent.
Back on point. But back on point.
Okay.
Back to the article.
According to the Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier, whilst Marvel Studios was entirely on board with the team being renamed as the New Avengers following their confrontation with the Void, test audiences found the entire bit so confusing that he made a last-minute change to the film's script in order to clear the air.
Here's another nitpick about the New Avengers thing. I think it would have made more sense if they were called the Dark Avengers, because they're all, various forms of anti-hero and villain.
I don't know if, well, realistically, I hate saying that, but would you actually call a team of supposedly superheroes the Dark Avengers?
Not in universe, but as a team name for them, it would have made more sense because they're all anti-heroic.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, again, this way I think the Thunderbolts would have actually worked better, given the context.
Yeah, they should have just picked one and stuck with it. Is what they should have done.
Yeah,
but assuming they wanted to do the title reveal thing.
Honestly, hell, even hold on. Can I? Sorry. Like, okay. Spoilers, if anyone gives a shit about that. In the scene, like the scene right before the fight with Sentry, when Alexi screams Thunderbolts and charges, Val makes mention to repeat that name, and to me, the way she said it and even looked, like the actress made the facial expression, curious and intrigued, like she's thinking that's a good name for something.
Yeah.
Either that or could have been confusing. I could be wrong. Depends. But
no, I agree with you. I think that beat would have made more sense if they had played it like that.
Yeah, like she literally could have had them be called the Thunderbolts, and like that's a new team of heroes. Like seriously, like I get the Avengers would have staying power as a name for the world.
But by that same token, you wouldn't want to rip them off, and that's what it kind of feels like with the name change.
I mean,
it feels like they don't have enough faith in Thunderbolts as a thing on its own terms, so they had to give them the Avengers name.
And that bugs me to no end, because it was literally a flagship title in the 90s. Before anyone says, oh, the 90s comics sucked, don't get me wrong. Yes, there was a lot of fucking edge and bullshit and shit like that. I will not.
But compared to today's day and age, it might as well be fucking Shakespeare.
I mean, there are a lot more good comics than there are bad. I've read many 90s comics, and they're actually not that. They're actually rather interesting. But the Thunderbolts, specifically, which was created and written. Well, it was written because it was created by like the writer and the artist, mind you. But I can't remember the artist's name.
It's also extra annoying when you consider that they're already setting up the Young Avengers with Kamala Khan and Kate Bishop and stuff in the Marvels. So like that's gonna get really confusing and unnecessarily
But
redundant really quickly if they ever do anything with it.
the idea. But to get back to the Thunderbolts thing, that series, which was a flagship for a good moment in the '90s during Marvel's time, which was after the Onslaught Heroes Reborn, I believe. Again, don't quote me on that. It's been a while, so I've done research on the Thunderbolts, but they were a flagship title of a superhero team that took off and had such an interesting premise. And don't get me wrong, I know we've had that whole discussion before, but what I mean is the Thunderbolts name, which it even has gone through its own different iterations, incarnations throughout Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't necessarily have to do the original version.
Yeah, you can pick and choose and take bits from here, bits from there, and just put them together.
Ultimately, the Thunderbolts have a staying power as long as you, and I think they put in the effort in the movie to have that name stick.
Yeah, and also while we're on this topic, are they still doing Young Avengers, or have they completely abandoned that? Because
I'll be honest, I have no idea. I haven't looked into
because
it.
at this particular juncture, the only really likable like Kate Blanchett is, or not Kate Blanchett, Kate Bishop is fine and everything, but as far as someone likable enough to act as a team leader and likable enough that the audience would actually want to see him act as a team leader, our beloved teen is the only one who has the charisma and like well writtenness enough to actually act as a leader there. So when only one of the like 5 characters you want to set up for Young Avengers is likable enough to act as a leader to it, may have a problem.
Which is weird because in the comics, Kate Bishop is the leader, right? I'm not
right.
It's weird because Kate Bishop doesn't. Don't get me wrong. Again, Haley Steinfeld did amazing with that character, and I don't dislike.
And the Hawkeye show was not bad. Just for the record, like it was not bad.
Yeah, no, I like. I remember seeing that. It was actually not bad. I think
the problem is simply that Agatha was better. Is the problem?
Well, not just that. I would say I think the issue is for one thing, it cut out a lot of scenes. There are a lot of deleted scenes that could have really helped the show a lot.
And also between the way Agatha was written and the way Joe Locke played Billy, he demonstrated a level of charisma that the other actors have not yet managed.
I think the issue is the way they wrote the MCU version of Kate Bishop is that she's not as confident or strong-willed as comics Kate is.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm not just gonna lie, the costume is not doing it for me as well. I think it's just because she's not wearing the shades or anything.
Right. I mean, the costumes of late have been kind of hit or miss anyway, but
yeah, God, don't get started on that. Anyway, moving on. Continue.
Yes.
Okay. As seen at the conclusion of the surprisingly enjoyable MCU outing, upon emerging from the void space and attempting to arrest Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. To be fair, I assumed most of them were going to kill her, which I would have been fine with because she's a bitch. Not the actress, obviously. I mean the character.
Yeah, the character is basically Amanda Wallering, and
oh no, at least Amanda Waller has some. Well, she doesn't have principles, but she's respectful.
She has scruples somewhere, whereas Val, not
actually,
so
okay,
much.
hold on.
She's been a dick this entire movie.
Hold on. Let me rephrase what I said. Amanda Waller, for better or worse, has a true motivation to do what she does. She does, no matter how horrible it is, for her country. She is a patriot through and through, and that's respectable in some form.
Whereas Val seems to be doing it just for her own amusement a lot of the time.
I wasn't going to say amusement. She is a greedy, narcissistic, hungry bitch. Granted, the power hungry bitch. as when.
Well, I mean, the whole like inciting incident of the team meeting each other in the first place is she sends them mutually after each other in the hopes that they'll all kill each other and die.
Right. And she's only doing it to save her ass. So, but what I was gonna say was, she pretends to care about other people or like her country or whatever, and try to show
But
her.
it's mostly just a narcissistic excuse for her to have fun and be self-interested, mostly.
Again, I wouldn't say fun, but and there is a thing when when she's shown her own void about like her guilt of like her father's death, which does add an interesting layer to her, but not enough for me to understand her motives.
Yeah, no. She opens the movie with basically convincing her various pawns to clean up after themselves so she doesn't have to.
Right. Also, John
And by
Walker
clean up after themselves, I mean kill each other so she doesn't get blamed for the bullshit she's been pulling this entire time.
Also, funny enough, John Walker funny as fuck in this movie.
He definitely had more time to develop as a character in this movie, and it helped him a lot, I think.
He is a likable asshole.
Anyway, which, given how many asshole characters they've been doing in the MCU recently, trying to recapture the same magic they had with Tony, it stuns me how utterly they failed in most cases to do the likable asshole trope.
Well, I think the issue is that they try to go directly and make them just like Tony in the likable assholeness, because there are different types of likable assholes.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think they succeeded mostly with Agatha, because they let her be her, and they let her likable assholeness come to the fore on its own.
Yeah, she's very debonair. Whereas Tony, it's like a, how to say this? It's like the it's kind of like you, Dalton.
I will wait for you to show your workings before I react to this.
Sophisticated, but capable of being, has a very, not dry wit, but a sharp, sarcastic wit, if that makes sense.
I used to refer to this back when obviously Tony was more a main character as Stark Snark.
Right. Okay.
Just because the fucking rhyme clicked in my head and I can't stop thinking it now.
But yeah, Agatha had like a very more like whimsical, very classical.
She's having a lot more fun with her assholeness than Tony is most of the time.
Because I feel like, for Tony, it's like more of a coping mechanism or defense mechanism, really.
And I mean, you could make some kind of argument with the whole Nicholas Scratch thing and all of her traumas and stuff. But
yeah, that's. But
Agatha knows who she is, and she's always on some level known who she is, and she's okay with it.
Yeah,
like,
and John Walker,
and that carries through even from WandaVision. Like back when she was pretending to be another extra on Wanda's show, you could see where Agatha, underneath Agnes, was enjoying kind of being able to pantomime and play up her sort of acting chops. And given what we see at the end of Agatha all along, with her kind of always doing that with the various witches that she then siphons from, it takes what was a gimmick and turns it into an interesting like modus operandi for the character. Which,
Well,
I
also
mean,
if you do
gives
that,
context to Jen like constantly whining at her for being basically a sociopathic witch killer and
right.
shit.
Was also that What If episode where she and Congo,
Yeah, Kingo.
sorry,
Yeah, Agatha takes Hollywood. Lol.
that actually was that's a fun one. Uh, but what the fuck else was I? John Walker, like again with the likable asshole thing, um, is that he's very not unintentionally funny, mind you, but how to say it?
He acts as the straight man for the jokes a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas like Red Guardian is often played more as the joke character, as in he is the joke itself.
I thought you said it was bulletproof. It's bulletproof-ish.
Yeah, I feel like John Walker is the kind of character who finds himself accidentally walking into the joke instead of Red Guardian just kind of being the lovable teddy bear character that he is.
Yeah, well,
Which
to
makes me think of Family Guy's joke about all the Russian people being bears on unicycles for some reason.
yeah the uh actually speaking of like the walking in on a joke by accident, where he gets shot at by Elena during their escape from the vault.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he's in disguise and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, fucking Christ, every time.
Moving along. There's a
Okay.
lot of interesting sidebars with this article, but moving along.
For a Black Ops, for a Black Ops operation, the villainous sees the opportunity for a self-serving PR opportunity and proceeds to take credit for assembling Elena and her fellow Thunderbolts as the world's new Avengers. From there, the film launches into its end credits scene, which I'm not gonna lie, that actually works for an end credit scene, given
Yeah. I don't know if Fantastic Four is going to be able to.
No, I mean the sequence of like their PR stuff, like the photos.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it would have worked for an opening credits from our earlier conversation, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it works for the end credits given the end scene of the New Avengers deal.
Mm-hmm.
Launched into its end credits, during which the audiences are presented with a montage of various in-universe newspaper and magazine headlines questioning the decision to appoint this ragtag group of super soldiers. We're not going to get into it. We've made our positions known about that.
Yeah, there needs to be a better balance of character types there. And speaking of what we were just talking about with Agatha, I really wish there was a version of this where like Agatha and Mordo and Abomination were like in the mix. Because the one thing this movie did really, really competently was character dynamics. And I think, especially post something like Agatha All Along, throwing somebody like Agatha or Mordo or Abomination in there would have created even more interesting character dynamics.
Yeah. The official successors to the title of Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yeah, I don't know about how successful Thunderbolts actually is. Like there's a significant possibility that it might not make 400 million worldwide.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Was regarding the Earth's Mightiest Heroes deal, like them being the successor. I don't think that works at all, given the super soldier
Yeah,
deal.
no, they're all various degrees of like anti-heroes. It doesn't they you can't play them as
That's not
like
that's not what I'm saying.
go ahead.
Earth's mightiest heroes, they are not the mightiest, given what just happened, given their fight scene with Sentry. They can get their asses kicked a lot.
Yeah. And therein lies another part of the problem with what phases 4 through 6 have been doing, where like the power scaling is so weird where you'll have characters on one extreme like Sentry or Wanda or how even Wiccan, and then you've got other characters who are just barely above normal human status.
All right. Anyway, shall we?
Yep, moving on.
Set headlines from the newspapers in the titles in the credits montage.
Mm-hmm.
Include Not My Avengers. Nope, really. The heroes no one asked for. Is new always better? The Avengers. Best hope or big joke. The heard around the world. And how would they lead? I do remember those from that.
I mean,
Actually,
those jokes became uncomfortably prescient considering that kind of mirrors the reaction to the movie itself.
I thought a lot of people liked the movie.
No, they like the movie, but a lot of people are annoyed at them trying to force the Thunderbolts to be the new Avengers and stuff.
Okay, that's fair, actually. All right. Though an admittedly memorable way to cap off the team's debut, Schreier recently admitted to the New York Times Kyle Buchanan that this montage was actually a post-production addition made in order to clear up potential confusion surrounding the new Avengers name. Huh.
I mean, that's a good choice, but like I say, ironically, I think a certain percentage of the audience is kind of on board with the straw man comments there.
Again, I think just keeping the Thunderbolts, for one thing, it's a cool ass name, and it does reflect on how they would technically operate.
And
actually.
it allows them to stand on their own merits rather than co-opting the prestige of the Avengers name.
Yeah.
Which is going to become even more confusing. I mean, we already covered the Young Avengers thing, and that making it somewhat confusing. But presumably, if Sam is supposed to be Captain America now, at some point he's going to want to make his own Avengers team, and that means we'll have three distinct groups of people vying for some connection to the Avengers name. You've got Sam and whoever he decides to bring on board. Then you've got
Again, sorry.
the Young Avengers trying to do their thing with it, and now you've got the Thunderbolts as the new Avengers trying to do their distinct branding with it.
Right. I mean, to be fair, there are a lot of different subsections of the Avengers anyway, like different teams of Avengers.
Right, but they haven't done enough work to set that up.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, even in the comics, it's a bit absurd how many like different Avengers.
I
teams
mean,
are.
for the love of God, you have one that's literally just called the West Coast Avengers. But the difference is that in the comics, the work has been done to set that up, whereas in the movies, it just seems jumbled. Like nobody knows what the fuck they're doing.
I mean, that's been obvious since, well, I don't know when, but it's been pretty obvious for a while.
At least the beginning of Phase 5.
Oh, okay, that's being generous, but okay. To be fair, I remember someone mentioning, like, I saw this video, like a short on YouTube, that it seemed like they were building up the West Coast Avengers after Endgame. Like, with all the
could have worked if they actually did it. Yeah.
Like, I realize you just call them the Avengers, like, but the roster could have been, the West Coast Avengers. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, asked by his host as to whether or not he knew from the start that the film would end with the Thunderbolts coming, the new Avengers director recalled, "Yeah, that was very exciting. I thought, well, if I get this movie, I'm the new director of Avengers," said Schreier, and then it was made very clear to me that was not the case. No, you're making Thunderbolts. But in its own way, that's where these discussions about the asterisks came from. My last pitch, I said, "Oh, we should do one Instagram post where we put an asterisk on the title and say until we come up with something better," to kind of tease this idea. They really ran with that, and we were thinking we're going to introduce them as the new Avengers right at the end of the movie, and then in the credit sequence, it's going to be a little weird if you just go back to Thunderbolts. That started this idea of could you actually switch the name at the end?
I mean, to be fair, Thunderbolts is in and of it, like on its own merits, a pretty cool name that you could have just ran with. But
And
okay,
not to mention, when they announced it, they literally not only had concept art for it, but they literally had a logo designed. So that's kind of what throws me for the loop all the fucking
yeah,
time.
it's a series of really nonsensical creative decisions where it doesn't seem like anyone knows what the fuck they're doing at any given moment.
Right.
Granted, DC is not much better looking at you, James Gunn, but
Anyway,
still, like,
moving on.
yeah, moving on.
From there, Buchanan raised the topic of the headline montage, to which the director revealed that this bit was not part of his original script, but rather, to be honest, that came from testing. When I was making the movie and listening to the score and imagining that moment, I assumed there'd be a cheer, said Schreier. When we actually tested it, it was more of an uncertain, halting applause, and people didn't know how to feel about it at first.
Because you confused a bunch of people, probably.
Right.
This
That's
is
where
the problem when you don't actually set up these things and you just throw things at the wall randomly.
Right.
People don't know how to feel
Well,
because
then,
they haven't. Anyway, moving on.
sorry, no, it's just like, to be fair, I want to get to the Frankenstein teaser.
Yep.
Right. That's where the title sequence comes from, he explained. I felt like we needed to show the audience that we understood this isn't necessarily obvious or even going to work, but hopefully you come to embrace it, and that sequence could take you through that process. I mean, I kind of get it, but also it just feels a bit.
There's the repeated question of why, though, is the thing. Like,
Yeah. It just, yeah. Again, if you kept the name, like you could have had them stand on their own, because I feel like this movie allowed them to build themselves up, right?
and then you could have, in theory, post Doomsday, had a combination of the Thunderbolts, whatever Sam's team was going to be, and the new Avengers come together and
Oh my
decide,
god.
okay, what
Okay,
what
sorry.
is the new roster going to be?
Okay, so sorry, I don't mean to, but I had an idea.
Hmm.
Okay, MCU rewrite. I think I've pitched this before, but all of Phase 4, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, it would have to be drastically changed.
Hmm.
But all of it, like it could just be its own single thing. One to kind of set up the world post Infinity War, because again, like going off my idea that Endgame would be held off for like 2 to 3 years from
Hmm.
Infinity War, like Infinity War would be the end of Phase 3.
Hmm.
Thunderbolts kind of becomes the Phase 4, right?
Hmm.
And like we have some of the series. Well, honestly, I think you can make Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of become like its own like little movie a
Hmm.
bit, just because most people are going to watch a movie more than they are going to watch a series that connects to a bunch of movies.
Hmm.
I mean, just a majority, right? Not like
It's unfortunate that that's the case, but unfortunately, that does seem to be the lowest common denominator we're working
but
with.
playing that you build up like okay, you do one of it, kind of working with a roster we were talking about, right?
Hmm.
Well, To be fair, I've thought about doing the Thunderbolts. I've written some ideas down how to do my own Thunderbolts movie, and the
Mhm.
roster I've come up with regarding it is, well, obviously U.S. Agent,
Mhm.
uh, Yelena and Red Guardian,
Yep.
Abomination,
Yep.
and for the record, if we were to keep, because She-Hulk came out in Phase 4, right? Or was it Phase 5?
Yes.
Okay,
No, it was Phase 4.
okay. And please keep in mind this would have been a rewrite version. Actually, I have my own rewritten version. I just need to redo it because I have it in a PDF and I need to rewrite it down into a document and post it somewhere. But an idea I've just thought about involving Abomination,
Mhm.
because you and I have had this whole back and forth whether or not he should be redeemed or not.
Mhm.
I was on the side of no, and like you said, I'm good with full villain. But I'm kind of starting to lean towards your idea more, revolving around kind of combining ideas from the Thunderbolts official movie to my own ideas.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's U.S. Agent, Yelena, Red Guardian, Abomination, Ghost. I'm unsure about Taskmaster or not because I have ideas for Taskmaster and some other things. Regardless, okay, it's just okay. The original roster I had: John Walker, U.S. Agent, Red Guardian, Yelena, Abomination, Ghost, uh, Vulture, because we haven't seen him in a while, and I'm
Uh,
refusing to have him appear in fucking Morbius. Fuck that bullshit.
Yeah, because it didn't even make sense for the spell that like Strange was casting or that they were trying to fix in the end of No Way Home. Because like it's not as though Vulture comes from another universe. He comes from the mainline MCU timeline. God
Right.
damn it.
Yeah, it would have been that. It would have been that motley crew there because they all had like special. Granted, again, my idea would have been that they would have been a covert ops team, but or no, no. The idea was like kind of do an inversion of Phase 1 with these characters, with Valentina being
Nick
the
Fury.
inverse of yeah. Which makes me think maybe instead of working for the CIA, being the director of the CIA, which would have made sense, mind you, but
Mhm.
maybe one of the other acronym organizations that are kind of like Shield in the comics, maybe like Hammer or something.
Yeah.
Um, work for the and she would have blackmailed or strong armed or whatever, threatened anything like that to form the Thunderbolts and like have them become a group of superheroes, U.S. team of superheroes meant to be the next team that the world looks to that she controls and all that yada yada.
Mhm.
I do kind of want to keep Bob and like his whole story because it's good. I like it.
I I wish they had just done a Sentry movie before this, though, is the thing. Like, because I I like
Okay,
Sentry in Thunderbolts, but at the same time, a Thunderbolts movie is not the place you should introduce somebody like Sentry.
okay,
He should have it. He
hold
should
on.
have his
What about
own. He should have his own thing.
okay? What if instead of a movie? Because I feel like not a bit. It's I'm not saying it's a stretch, but I think I'm not going to say. I just think it would give a little more creativity to who's ever making this special presentation.
That would have been interesting. Granted, while we're on this topic, for the love of all that is holy, set up the Midnight Suns. You already have Man Thing and you have Werewolf by Night. I don't see why you couldn't have Doctor Strange or Wiccan or
I could see
Hell
there.
even.
Sorry, I was gonna say there's like a person I could definitely see directing a Sentry special presentation,
Hmm.
and he'd already worked on like a superhero thing that was super weird and mentally mind fucking.
Hmm.
Noah Hawley of Legion.
That could work. Getting the guy who did Legion to do Sentry would not be a bad choice.
And again, if it's a special presentation, he would get a lot more creativity, like a lot more room to be creative with it.
Mhm.
Because from what I get, honestly, from the special presentation we've seen, which granted they're only like what 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Um, it seems
because
like
you had Werewolf by Night, you had Guardians Christmas special or holiday special. Trying to think of if there were any other ones.
I don't know if the one shots count or not.
I want to say those were the only two we've gotten so far of special presentations.
Hold on, I'm looking up real quick. Okay, but
I think Wonder Man is supposed to be one, but that hasn't come out yet, obviously.
yeah. Although I do genuinely think that the actor, Yayo, I can't remember his name, unfortunately. No, okay, it's only been 2. So never mind. I thought
Okay,
that.
so I was right. Yeah,
Yeah,
just Werewolf by Night and Guardians Christmas special.
all came out 2 years ago.
Which why in the fuck haven't we seen more of Jack and Ted
They were genuinely cool, by the way. Like on
and Ilsa too, Ilsa Bloodstone?
yeah. Um,
Where the fuck have they been?
right.
Assuming they do bring Ghost Agatha and Billy back at some point, I want them to interact with Ilsa, Ted, and Jack.
Anyway, sorry. Let's finish this and then we can move on to Frankenstein.
Yep.
Drawing this portion of their discussion to a close, Buchanan responded to Schreier's anecdote with the observation of, "It sounds like the post-credit scenes aren't necessarily set in stone when you begin." To which his guest confirmed, "Yeah, it is fluid. Kevin was always really good at being responsive to how the material feels and feeling where to take the next steps with the franchise." He concluded, "I directed one of the post-credit scenes and not the other. I did the grocery one, and then the second post-credit scene was filmed just a month ago in London as a part of the production of Avengers Doomsday. I was there and we talked about what it needed to do for our characters, but Florence said it was like being dropped off at school by your parents as they wave goodbye." That seems apt.
Yeah, I not to diss Kevin Feige too much here, but my God, please put more consistent thought into these things. It would benefit everyone.
All right, give me 1 sec. Oh, Stalin, there's an idea that popped in my head we should briefly discuss after the stream.
Yep. Anyway, Frank and Nana.
Give me a second. Okay. Sorry, it was taking a while. It was taking a good minute there to load.
But now it is alive. But tish.
You resist, could you?
I am sorry it had to be done.
No, it's
Otherwise,
but yeah,
otherwise I would have had an aneurysm.
So this is the official teaser for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which we have kind of every now and then when we've heard something about it have covered, and more or less, I would say we have been genuinely excited about this, right?
Yeah, I want to see what Guillermo can do with it.
Because he's always been if I remember, like some interviews and stuff, he's always been a big fan of Frankenstein. He's always felt a kinship with the monster.
He loves his monster protagonist. He always has. So like,
to be fair, he was in line when they were doing the Dark Universe. I know it went terribly crashing, but he was in line to do a Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein like romance movie.
Why in the? Okay, this is just me. This is gonna be me ranting about something that I've been saying ever since like Shape of Water came out. But why didn't they do a series of like Guillermo del Toro style, the classic Universal movie monsters, but done as romances? Because I mean, Shape of Water. There you have your creature from the Black Lagoon. I would put money on the fact that a vampire romance from Guillermo del Toro could have put Twilight to shame in the space of about 5 seconds. Like we say, he already had an idea in the works for
Universal.
For Frankie and the Bride. I'm not. You could easily do one. Maybe this is me reading too much into the like quote unquote themes behind the monsters, but I feel like Guillermo del Toro's version of a werewolf romance would be a gay romance, because werewolves are very like masculine coded.
It really depends, I suppose.
I for one would be in favor of that.
Enough. I would actually. I'm not big on romance. Well, okay, that's kind of a lie, but it's not like a go-to in terms of genres.
Romance as a genre leaves a lot to be desired because they don't try a lot of the time.
Yeah. But I actually like just keep it in line with Guillermo del Toro, right? With the monster romance stuff you wanted. Mm-hmm. I would love to see his take on the Mummy, actually. So I think that would be interesting.
Because even in the old days, that had a romantic element of the Mummy wanting to get the reincarnation of his deceased love interest High Priestess there.
To be fair, I've always liked the Mummy as a. Well, to be fair, I like the Egyptian culture of mummies as well. I think it's fascinating, and the Egyptian afterlife I find incredibly interesting. But also, I don't know, just the imagery of the mummy. I think it's also because I remember Under Wraps, the Disney Channel movie.
Yep. And Tuttenstein.
Oh yeah. Oh god, Tuttenstein. That was the guy who did Sickly Saturdays also did that.
I know. It makes me think that he and I would get along well.
Yeah.
Me and the guy behind those.
It's why like when I'm thinking of like rewriting the DCEU and I have the Creature Commandos, I have them be an animated series on Cartoon Network made by a guy who did the Secret Saturdays and Tuttenstein.
That would be good. That would certainly be good raw materials to work with. Anyway, yeah. Frank and Nana.
Yeah, let me get to the tab and we'll Frank and Nana.
I had determined that the memory of my evils should die with me. Some of what I will tell you is fact.
Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein. I'm not upset about the choice actually.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That makes all the
Okay,
sense,
so
in fact.
also because I have looked into the actual novel, I have not read it, but I've watched videos to discuss it. Like I've watched the overly sarcastic productions.
Have you
Uh,
seen the miniseries from the 90s that's actually a really decent adaptation of the novel?
um, I don't believe so, but because they
I will
showed
have to
the
see if I can find it for you.
but they showed the a frozen ship in the Arctic or frozen in, stuck in frozen water, right?
Hmm.
That's already gotten points for me
Running
because
around on the ice, etc.
thank you. It's already gotten points for me because that's like the main. Well, it's the it's where the story itself is being told from, right?
Frankenstein is a lot like Dracula in that people are more familiar with the concept of the character than they are with the actual novels the characters are based on.
Is it weird that we're kind of getting like universal? Well, not you get. I'm going to say universal monsters, but bear with me on that. Obviously, I mean more like the classic literature monsters that have appeared.
Mhm.
That we're getting kind of a resurgence of them in recent,
Well,
like
I'm curious if the next time Universal takes a stab at it, they're gonna use their new Epic Universe uh, park as like a mold for the next iteration of
I have
the
seen
Dark Universe.
I've seen little bits of that, and I want to look into like the trailers and stuff because it has looked interesting.
Yeah, what I've seen of it, I've liked. I just wonder if they're gonna try to, since they couldn't really make an IP worthy of its own theme park because they kept screwing it over. I wonder if they'll kind of reverse engineer it, where they'll use people's reaction to Epic Universe as the
I mean,
template.
hey, Disney did it with Pirates of the Caribbean, so they honestly maybe they should
Yeah,
get Gore.
it can be done, and considering how many duds we've had over and over again,
Hey, maybe they
I'm
should get
more
the
than
hey,
happy to see them. I'm more than happy to see them do something interesting with it.
maybe they should get the director of Pirates, like the guy who made the first three Pirates of the
Gore
Caribbean.
Verbinski.
Thank you. I was going to say I knew it was,
Gore Verbinski would be an amazing like Kevin Feige / James Gunn alike for a Universal Monsters universe, especially if
yeah,
they
he's
kind
like,
of still do the anti-hero thing that they were setting up with the Mummy.
yeah, they Gore Verbinski is actually like my pick to do for my rewritten version of Black Adam.
He would be very good.
Yeah.
He would in fact be very good. I would also like to see Robert Eggers take a stab at it, but he hasn't done enough actual blockbuster work yet to know
Well,
how
okay,
he
that's
can
why that's
how
why I
he
was
does
bringing up
with.
that's why I was bringing up the resurgence of like the Universal monsters. Obviously, like you know what I mean, right? Like the
Yeah.
the and we got Nosferatu, like kind of the big budget vampire movie, which was actually very
Yeah,
good.
his Nosferatu was really good. Although I'm not surprised because I really liked the Northman, and I of course
You know,
really like the Witch. So
right? And he's doing like I think it was like a werewolf movie set in the Crusades.
which just oh my god, that sounds
Which
so badass.
someone actually made the joke. I saw on X when that was announced. That could be a response to the Wolfman movie from Blumhouse.
Which okay, speaking of IPs that would be better served under Robert Eggers, it pisses me off that we're getting a big budget version of the Odyssey from Christopher Goddamn I Have No Soul in My Direction Nolan instead of Robert Eggers, who, based on what he did with The Witch and based on what he did with Nosferatu and based on what he did with The Northman, his version of the Odyssey would actually be worth watching, especially if they
I think
gave
he
him
also
fuck off money to do it.
I think he also did The Lighthouse.
I think that's him, but that might be Ari Aster. I always get them confused.
Hold on, I'll look it up real quick. But yeah, he always goes for whenever he does because he's known for doing like historical movies.
Yeah, and doing a lot of folklore research. That's why if you had to give if you had to give fuck you money to some director to do a modern adaptation of the Odyssey, why in the fuck wasn't it Robert Eggers?
Yeah, no,
Um,
yeah, that was him. That was him.
eh,
He's only made 4
yeah,
movies.
he's not made that many. Like Northman was, I think, like his third or fourth movie ever.
Third, Nosferatu is his 4th movie. So,
Yeah,
and his first movie was in 2015. That's almost 10 years ago.
yeah. The Witch, I think, was his first go. I'm pretty sure.
No, yeah, it was.
Which when that is your opening move, sir, god damn it, you have talent. But that's not it. That's neither here nor there. This is what I mean. If you had to pick a director to give fuck off money to do an adaptation of the Odyssey, give it to Robert Eggers instead of Christopher I Have No Soul Nolan.
Honestly, I would love. Okay, it's a bit out on. It's not out there, but I would actually because okay, I still really love the Green Knight. I would love to see
Yeah,
his take on the Legends of King Arthur.
also awesome. Um, while we're on this topic and while we're on the why can't we get a better version of the Odyssey, imagine they did an adaptation of Epic the Musical, but they had Robert Eggers do it.
Either that, or okay. I honestly, every time when I picture because I feel like it would work best in animation, right?
I mean, I could see it either way. There is
That's
a part of me that wants a big fuck off live action blockbuster version of the Odyssey.
no, that's fair. That's fair. I do think it could work either way, honestly, because the guy, Jorge,
Yeah,
um, Jorge J. Hernandez, I believe. If I butchered the name, I'm sorry, or I misspoke. Forgive me on that. It's been a while since I've looked at his name. He actually does do stage stuff, so I can't imagine it being like as a stage play.
yeah. Written by that guy, directed by Robert Eggers, and with
I'm just
what
like every time
however much budget they were gonna give Christopher Nolan to
so
ruin it.
every time I picture the movie, like if it got like an adaptation or something, I imagine it looks a lot like the '90s DreamWorks movies, like Prince of Egypt or Road to El Dorado.
Or even like
The
Emperor's New Groove.
that or Treasure Planet, or
Sinbad's another really good
yeah,
one because
that's actually good.
my God, speaking of movies that are really good at how they portray gods, like I know she was the villain in that, but I love the way they portrayed Eris in Sinbad.
God, I remember Eris.
Imagine Warrior of the Mind and the whole Athena reveal, but done in that style. Like all the gods of Epic the Musical done in the style of Eris from Sinbad.
I'm also actually one of my favorite. God, it's hard to actually pick a favorite song from there.
I recently just saw I think it's called Wouldn't You Like, where Hermes is offering Odysseus the mole.
Right. Um, I'm cut. It's like a 5 or cross. Like it's ruthlessness. Uh, famous. 600 strike. That's a. I think it's would you fall in love with me again and no longer you, or like kind of my top, or like my top 5. They're all
I
like
really like the flashback segments in Warrior of the Mind, where we see the young Odysseus very like psyched to interact with Athena and stuff. Um, I do really like, especially those flashbacks. God Games, God Games, I like just because it portrays the Greek pantheon really well.
yeah. Ares was actually my favorite part of that. I think it was just like
I like when Athena first asked Zeus for a favor, and his whole like first monologue of divine intervention, is that what you seek?
Okay.
To untie apprehension laid upon that Greek, and
Thunderbringer
like
was actually also pretty good too.
Thunderbringer is good. My problem with it is much as the same as my problem with Zeus in general. Is God Zeus is a dick.
Yeah.
I mm, mm.
But I will say I do like Ruthlessness maybe a little bit more than like Thunderbringer.
I saw someone made a like fan made lyric of God games with Hecate, and it kind of makes me sad that we don't see Hecate much in.
I've seen like a bunch of like fan, like specifically for God games, like ones for Persephone, ones for Artemis.
I am kind of pissed that Poseidon wasn't included, considering that Poseidon is the one with the biggest bone to pick with Odysseus.
Well, he probably would have said no, which actually would have been interesting because
Well,
everyone.
yes, but yeah, but it actually would have been interesting, assuming we were okay with portraying Zeus a little bit more even-handedly. If instead of Zeus going back on his word at the end of God games, Poseidon storms in just as Zeus is about to pony up his end and throws a tantrum because
To be fair, I don't know if I think someone actually proposed the idea that Zeus only got that way because Athena said to Hera that Odysseus never once cheated on his wife.
and that rubs all the salt in all the wounds.
Yeah. Anyway,
which I mean, to be, I really liked that. Even though in the original version or in the surviving version of the Odyssey, he does cheat with Circe for a bit.
Yeah.
I understand why they changed that specifically to make that scene work. And especially given the romance between Odysseus and Penelope is like a
would you
central axis of the story.
Right.
But
would
like
you fall in love with me again is like that song gets me.
Yeah, but I remember when my friend Sean first showed me songs from Epic the Musical, and it got to that part of God games, and I'm like, is this before he cheats with Circe, or is she lying out of her ass? Because I remember distinctly that they did have a dalliance for like a decade in the original myth. And then he was like, "Oh, in this version, he doesn't cheat with her." And I was like, "That's probably better for the sake of the love story." But at the same time, I would have loved to see Athena have to like explain that afterwards. Like, "Oh, I guess it's a good thing that I said that when I said it instead of afterwards." Because that would have been tough to explain to Hera afterwards.
All right.
Anyway, Frank and Nana.
Yeah. Come on. There we go.
Some is not, but it is all true. What manner of creature is that? What manner of devil made him?
Okay, I suspect this will be the case because it's Guillermo and he loves his monster protagonists. But I hope we actually lay the blame for the monster's actions at Victor's feet, frankly, in my opinion, we're supposed to, because everyone always hyperfixates on the themes of, the limits of science and the avoiding playing God thing in the first place, and that's an aspect of the novel. I'm not going to lie and say it's not an aspect of the novel. But the other aspect of the novel that I always found to be more interesting is Victor intended for the creature to be the perfect being. And he succeeded in creating the perfect being, but he was unwilling to act as a father because the only part of his being that the monster doesn't control, his outward looks, were something his own father couldn't look past.
Right. Sorry.
I want to lay the appropriate amount of blame at Victor's feet for this because he wanted to create the perfect being. He succeeded in creating the perfect being, and then he was too grossed out by his own handiwork to act as a fucking father figure like he should have.
Can I?
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So, few things. One, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Two, I am wondering how they're going to tackle, because I believe in the novel it's vague on how he actually like gave life to the creature, right? I know in the movie, so in my head I'm curious because Guillermo del Toro loves classic movies as well, right?
He do that.
Well, I don't think he's going to. Well, he always does. He likes to do his own thing, like because I'm thinking he could do a combination of both, like the lightning with like some type. Because I believe in the novel again, it's been a while. I've not generally read it.
Yeah, it's left completely ambiguous the process that Victor uses to create the creature in the first place.
Right.
The lightning motif is something that was created by the 1940s movie.
Granted, I was under the
And it just-
impression, novel-wise, I was under the impression it was through some type of alchemical means.
Well, the story that Mary Shelley based Frankenstein on was a story of an alchemist creating a homunculus originally.
Right. Okay. So I do think you could combine those if you want to do like a visual spectacle.
Well, and we know that Guillermo likes the motif of combining like sorcery and science and doing the whole techno sorcery thing. Look at what they did with Rasputin in the first Hellboy.
Yeah.
So I could very easily see Victor combining something from alchemy and adding electricity on top of it. Because this is the other interesting thing with the use of lightning later on in later adaptations like the 1940s movies and stuff. There were actual electrical experiments in the Victorian era that would have been contemporaneous to Mary Shelley. Like she actually went to scientific lectures of the day where they demonstrated how electrical charge could make corpses like open their eyes or jerk or in some cases even sit up. Yeah. So using the electrical motif isn't necessarily a bad idea, but as a fan of the novel and also as a fan of the or the sort of fairy tale that led to the creation of the novel, I would like to see, if not just straight up alchemy, then a similar kind of techno sorcery thing like Rasputin had in Hellboy 1.
I do also the third thing before we move on. I mean, I assume he's going to do it, obviously, but it's just such a rarity. For one thing, I hope he does like the actual description of.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Adam, because that's what Mary Shelley wanted to actually call him.
Well, because the whole point of Victor's exercise was essentially to prove on some level that man could create life in the same manner that God did, and that's where you get the playing God motif.
I know, but like the actual like description, like the design, the look of Adam.
And also, obviously, this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway because it needs to be emphasized. Give the monster his genius level intellect, goddamn you.
Yeah, that was going to be my next thing. Like his, yeah, like give the, because don't get me wrong, I don't mind like the 1930s Frankenstein. He was good for what it was at the time.
but it
I think
is
it's-
about as far away from the actual the novel's creature as possible. And again, it completely ignores my favorite quote unquote theme of the novel, which is Victor sought to create the perfect being, and he was too short sighted and shallow to realize that he actually succeeded.
Right.
Because the creature actually does have, basically from the start, have the strength of a demigod, the intellect of a genius, and the tortured soul of a poet. It's only other people's reaction and refusal to acknowledge the monster for its good qualities that leads the monster to his tragic downward spiral.
I do think the only adaptation I've seen that has done that correctly of Frankenstein's monster would be Caliban from Penny Dreadful.
I mean, I think I, Frankenstein, kind of tried to do it, and like I said, there was a really good TV miniseries back in the day that was a better adaptation of the novel.
Well, what I'm saying is, they got the look right and the character right, like how he is described.
Mhm.
Like eyes, the pale skin, black lips, I believe.
Yeah, because he's an animated corpse, so a lot of his aesthetics are corpse-like.
Yeah.
And again, whose fault was that, Victor? Did we not think through the one thing the monster couldn't control, the aesthetics of its body, and yet you, its creator, decided to freak the fuck out after?
I have to get up at like 5:45.
I know. I just get very salty with Victor Frankenstein as a character.
I know. Shall we?
Frankenana.
Frankenana.
I did. I had a vision. An idea took shape in my mind. Inevitable.
And yet you couldn't be a decent father figure, could you, Victor? Sorry. The salt and the men's rights activist in me. I blame everything that happened in that novel on Victor being a short-sighted cunt.
I'm not disagreeing. To be fair, it was Victor's own hubris and imperfections that could not see what he had done.
That he succeeded in his endeavor.
Yeah.
And that God forbid a child should need to be parented, damn it.
To be fair, it's if you want to look through a religious context, as he is technically God creating a man. It does seem to be the failure of God to recognize the beauty of his creation through its own flawed visage, because it was his own flawed hands that crafted it.
Well, and to be fair, this is a line or a phrasing I'm stealing from Good Omens. Why in the fuck wasn't the tree of knowledge of good and evil on a mountain or on the moon or something? Like, why did you stick it right in the middle of the garden and then tell them not to eat it? Why didn't you put it literally anywhere else in the vast universe you created, damn it?
Well, okay, and again, this is speaking to a guy who is relatively, well, I'm not overtly religious or zealot or anything. I have my beliefs,
and
I practice them the way I believe I should practice them.
Yeah,
so obviously, I'm just offering a commentary that I believe is a observation that can be made from the novel or story of Frankenstein in general.
You could, if you chose, see Victor's hubris as a creator be somewhat analogous to, especially the Old Testament God getting angry every 5 minutes and destroying everything because he made imperfect creatures and then expected them to be perfect.
Where, again, it's that idea, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this about God himself. I'm speaking just as generalized in terms of like the idea of man.
Thematically here.
Man, thank you. Victor, who sought to be God, effectively, right? It's kind of his whole thing.
Or at the very least, declare himself as equal to God.
Yeah, I would say that is more accurate, to be fair.
Yeah.
Seeking to be on the same pedestal as God, or in the same level.
Yeah.
Of himself
to look God in the eye as an equal. Sorry.
You good. And granted, technically he gave the creature consciousness, and you not going to go into the deep argument because I think we've had this before and it just took forever.
Mm-hmm.
Technically could have given him a soul in some form or fashion by bringing him to life.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to be technical, he did not craft the actual true body of the creature through.
Yeah, he created another being from the parts that already existed.
Yeah, he was basically making, for lack of a better term, and not to insult Adam, used poor materials to craft the chassis.
Yeah, and then blame the creature for it, and everything the creature was or had control over, Victor succeeded in creating the perfect being.
Right. Again, it's like
to borrow a quote from famous atheist Christopher Hitchens, Victor very much created someone sick and then commanded them to be well.
Yeah, that again, it's the hubris of man that I believe is the ultimate downfall of Victor Frankenstein.
And that hubris, at least from my perspective, takes the form of bringing a child into the world and then not taking the time or energy to love and raise it.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah,
that actually. I don't know why I felt something there when you said that.
It's just like, obviously I don't think Guillermo del Toro is gonna play the men's rights card because he's about as far from me politically as you can get. But
that's right. Anyway, it's all looking good. Like cinematically, it's just amazing.
I mean, surprise, freaking surprise! Guillermo del Toro continues to be aces at aesthetics.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we?
Frankenana.
Unavoidable. Until it became truth.
No responsibility.
So it looks like they are, because I saw like kind of a Tesla coil look for the lab.
I still wouldn't put it past Guillermo to do the techno sorcery or techno alchemy.
No, yeah, I wouldn't either. I'm just saying, like, he had Tesla coils in the lab, and again, the sets are fucking immaculate, so grand, just so fucking like theatrical.
Whatever else you may think of Guillermo del Toro, he has always had an eye for aesthetics that is second to no one.
I know, it's just like, it's so, like, honestly, like, as colorful as it is, and like Guillermo del Toro knows how to do color, but honestly, I almost want to see this in black and white too, like just out of genuine curiosity, because I think it would still look good.
I'm sure either someone will do a fan version of it in black and white, or like a fan edit, or I could even see there being like a limited release of it being in black and white in some theaters. I could see the studio doing that as a gimmick.
This is going to be released on Netflix.
For all of Netflix's many faults, they've done right by Guillermo many times over. Right. So, I'm not
Can I
particularly surprised that he takes as full advantage as he does of the creative freedom offered to him by Netflix.
Right. But I am actually now I'm wondering who's playing the monster. And obviously by that I mean like, the Adam Frankenstein Adam,
Yeah.
Because to get for one thing, you gotta get an actor who's imposing, like tall in stature, but also can basically deliver fucking Shakespearean monologues with such grace and intelligence.
Yeah, because genius level intellect and the soul of a tragic poet.
But from what I remember, also someone who is incredibly scarred, broken, and almost spiteful.
Embittered by the world essentially turning its back on him. My favorite quote from the monster is, "I have love in me the likes of which, you you would not, or I have love in me the likes of which you cannot imagine, and rage the likes of which you would not believe. If I
Right.
cannot indulge the one, I will indulge the other."
Honestly, I could see Dave Bautista playing actually a good Frankenstein's monster.
I kind of hope for an unknown actor, just because
No, I know,
want.
I know, but I'm saying just in like another one that would do like
He could, like, his acting is actually really good. Like in Knock at the Cabin, he did really well, surprisingly.
I remember seeing him in like a short film that tied to his character in Blade Runner 2049. That was actually really good.
Would you rather they get an actor who's like NBA tall, or would you rather they get a guy who's like 6'5" and then put him on like stilts and stuff?
I would honestly say kind of in the middle. Like maybe like 6'5", 6'6".
Would you have them do his height practically, or would you rather they do it with CG?
Well, you know me, I would prefer. I would say practically, honestly, because you could do more with like forced perspective than anything else. Like you wouldn't have to.
Yeah,
like,
they did that. They did that a lot with the TV miniseries from the 90s.
Yeah,
I think they had him on stilts in most scenes, but they also used a bunch of other practical things and forced perspective and miniaturized sets and stuff was a thing.
Anyway,
Frankenstein, mwahaha. I suspect they'll wait until the end of the trailer to give us a good look at Adam.
I created.
seeking life, I created death.
You created a child who needed love, Victor. That's what you created, but that's neither here nor there.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. Mwahaha.
To death.
I mean, I know what they're going for with the deep voice, but I could do without the deep voice.
Yeah, honestly, every time I've always pictured the voice, right? I've always kind of expected it to be very soft, very well, obviously, because if he's going to be eloquent, I don't expect like his. Well, I don't know. I've heard
You can
people-
still have an actor with an imposing voice, like an Alan Rickman or a Christopher Lee style voice.
Well,
but
Christopher Waltz.
you shouldn't like pitch shift it. Is the thing.
Right. Christoph Waltz is in this movie. I don't think he's playing I'm not sure if he's playing the monster. I doubt it, but
I would severely doubt it. He is much too old to play the monster at this point.
I just think he's a bit
Unless they did it as animation, then I could see maybe. Although, frankly, I'd rather he play Victor if.
Oh, it's coming out in November.
So close. Why the fuck isn't it coming out in October?
It's gonna come out on my
I guess
birthday.
I guess if it's early enough in November, it can still catch the Halloween hype.
I got an early birthday present. That's cool. Well, I got a birthday month present. So, so anyway, with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Be a better parent than Victor Frankenstein, or fuck off.